And it's happening, and people don't notice it because they don't think about it. Because if you're just like, oh, I'm just using AI, everything you use changes you.
This technology is going to have big impact on our livelihood, and yet we don't have any contingency plan, right?
The mind was blown.
Yeah,
dude.
like
You're
the fact
what,
that's happening.
What is happening? Can you trust this? How can you trust this? There's no driver. You think, oh, that's a cool way to combine this. Boom, and then the world is gone. Are you willing to sacrifice yourself for the next generation to live in a utopia? That's why everybody wants to experience something like that, because it's one thing hearing about it, but imagine seeing it like, oh my God, this is real. Hey, so today I wanted to watch this old video. It's a TED talk from Sam Harris about building AI without losing control over it. And I wanted to see how relevant the topics and questions and ideas in this video are still today, because it's pretty old. I think it's maybe 9 or so years old.
Wow.
But I think it still has some relevant ideas that we can check out and see if they still resonate. All right, let's start watching it.
Wow.
That would be the one. It's interesting that he mentioned the global pandemic, right? So this video is from 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, but why would that make us not want to develop AI and technology further? Kind of don't see the link there. Is he saying that it would, like, if it caused the global pandemic or something?
Well, I think it has it's more like something like that scale can break the supply chains and kind of basically, what happened during the 2020 pandemic, right? Like it disrupted so many different things, and it's kind of stopping the economic engine. It's changing the social fabric. A lot of things has been kind of affected. But yeah, it doesn't mean that we will stop, because think about the AI development right now. It's not stopping. And all these companies are pouring billions of dollars, even with the talk of the bubble and all that, but they're still pouring all the money because they do see the potential, right? It's like they see this as the next revolutionary. Because think about right now, the human consciousness of development has shifted from before the first industrial revolution, or with the introduction of combustible engines and cars. People were very against new ideas back then because they're like, okay, it's going to change our whole way of life. And obviously, certain industry will go out of business. This is why back in the turn of the century, 21st century, right, with the advent of cars, people were against it because, well, that's going to replace horses, and that whole business is going to go out. And people were afraid of the unknown. How is that going to change your life? But once they see how much more, like how much benefit a car brings, not only just lessen travel times and also increase productivity and in terms of transportation and all that, they start seeing this is revolutionary. In the same way that, the steam engine introduced all the possibilities before that, and now with the digital, with the computer technology, right? Computer now are in every house. It's basically ubiquitous in society. But now we're embracing that, right? We're start embracing the technological
we totally
advancement.
embrace that. What you mentioned about the cars and the fact that people considered it revolutionary technology. I mean, AI, as more than any other technology, is revolutionary, right? Because now it's getting into the area of just science fiction. It's so unreal because, I mean, most people don't even understand what AI is, right? They don't have the conception of what it is. It's almost synonymous with the term God at this point, because you don't know how it works, you don't know what its real capabilities are, and you don't know where it's heading. So it's very, very unknown to many people. It's unknown to me because, I mean, I use it every day for all kinds of purposes. And I'm watching myself of how I relate to it, what I think about it. And it's getting kind of weird because I definitely feel like I'm plugging it into my thought process. So I'm considering it an extension of my thinking capabilities, which is very strange.
And just one point I want to point out is that the current AI, LLM, are not true AIs. Like they just a process of
Well, this is
text
where
and
it's
language.
like, I studied on this bit because I was studying the cognitive project management with AI, and there's a point that there isn't really even an agreed upon definition of AI. It's because it goes back to definitions, our favorite pastime. It's because you need to define what intelligence is, and that's again a
Right.
whole separate discussion. Everything becomes this debate essentially. So yeah, it's not AGI, right? Not artificial general intelligence, which is able to do the same things that humans are able to do. But yeah,
It's the same way as biologists cannot define what life is. I believe this is the consensus. Like if you ask any biologist to define life, I mean, they can give you a more or less kind of all-inclusive definition, but science has been saying like we can't really define life. We only define it by what we can observe right now and what we know. But like in terms of an absolute definition, nobody can find it because you can find a kind of life that is just completely out of your conception, and it'll still be possible to be defined as life. It's the same idea, right? This is like this kind of general fog of an idea of AI. Like we think that, oh, we think we know what it is, right? Or this is the conception, from
it's kind of an umbrella term because there are different artificial intelligence technology has been studied from like 20th century, so it's not
Mhm.
as new. It's just its early conceptions and definitions were very basic, right? They're definitely evolved. I was just looking up the kind of definition of intelligence officially, so we don't spend the next half hour arguing about what it is, because we could just do that. But intelligence is the mental capacity to acquire knowledge, reason, learn from experience, adapt to environments, solve problems, and apply understanding to new situations. So you can see it's a multiple things already. So it's not like this is what intelligence is. It's kind of an umbrella term for all these behaviors and capabilities. And from that standpoint, yeah, artificial intelligence is kind of something that is able to do all this, right? Because artificial intelligence is able to reason because it's an algorithm. Reasoning is just an algorithm, right? If this, then that. It's able to acquire knowledge. We can create an algorithm to learn stuff and compile and order that knowledge. Learn from experience, that one is tricky. I guess experience would just be exposure to new environments and new data for the algorithm of AI. But everything else, like adapting to environments, solving problems, and applying understanding to new situations, that's totally something that AI can do. Artificial intelligence, let's see, it mimics human traits like learning and reasoning, but is categorized as narrow. Right, that was the big difference. So all AI that exists right now is narrow because it's just task specific. The general one is the human-like across all tasks. That's the one which still don't have. And then the next final bit is super intelligent, surpassing humans. So that would be some kind of demigod level intelligence.
Yeah, like I remember seeing some video talking about how they were testing some of these processes where the new kind of AI systems, they will basically let them run mazes, right? So let them run mazes and see how much different processing can, like how fast can they solve the maze versus kind of old computing systems where which is just, kind of they're just doing it sort of kind of like a dumb way for the computer to do it. They just keep testing it until so it's like um there's like one process. So now they have multiple processes. So these AI essentially would just go out into the maze with different processes and try to find out which way will be the correct way to go. So it just means there is an increase of processing power by the way how these AI are structured. So that is a market improvement over the old kind of computing model. But beyond that, I think the obviously we start seeing this with LLM, right? The fact that it is still processing the information and on the when they scrape all the information, they're able to kind of learn from the information that they process. This is why it's amazing to people when you type in a prompt. It's like, oh, it's almost like it's responding to me, right? Because it's giving you, because it's kind of catered to very much to the human process of asking questions and answering, right? And then it just goes with follow up questions. And so in that sense, it's kind of intelligent in the way that we perceive it, right? We think that, oh, it feels like it's responding to my queries, but obviously, yes, there's no not to the level of general intelligence where it's able to reason and that's a huge chasm to go past because I mean, all we have as humans is almost given in a sense. Our brain structures are formed like from years of evolution, and we just take it for granted that the fact that we can reason, we can have these what we call intelligence, thinking about problems, thinking about all this, but the complexity of that, we still don't understand it. The neural networks, why is it so? I mean, the neurons are such a simple kind of component, but when they are combined together into our brain, it forms such a complex operations. It can process all these information, and it's just kind of amazing that we have this, right? But how? That's the kind of I wonder if there is just this kind of almost uncrossable divide, or is this something we can build our knowledge of science and start learning more and more until we get to that point? Or is this just kind of like just like you can find out about the processes and how they work, but then why does it work that way is anybody's guess, right? So I'm just wondering that is, I guess, is what people are trying to find out now, right? Can we actually achieve AGI in this sense, or is this just kind of a dream, right? Thinking that we can make this.
Yeah. Um, for most purposes, like today's AI for a regular human, it's for the way I've been using it, it's pretty much indistinguishable because its intelligence, like to me, it's already higher.
What you would be able to find in the world and that's not
Exactly.
human,
Than just other humans. Because
right?
if you think about it, even human intelligence it's versatile, but most humans they're very limited in terms of what they know and what they do. We still all specialize. So even among humans, there is no general intelligence. It's general in a sense that there's a ceiling to the complexity you're able to figure out, essentially navigate. But to me, AI already has a much higher ceiling than any human because any task you give it, on average, AI will be able to do more stuff than you.
Yes, they have more database to kind of extract the information.
Right. So that's part of it, right? Our knowledge and our memories are part of our intelligence.
Yeah, but I think the question now is like, okay, but if an AI execute a command, or even if it has a system of reasoning, does that make it intelligence in the way of how, in the human brain, we have to process this information and come to a conclusion, if you will, or a plan of action, how we process information, and it's by learning how we are learning, right? Obviously, AI can have these computer systems by which they can have a vast amount of data they can process. But what makes that processing intelligent, right? In terms of we have to learn stuff, but the computer can also learn stuff. But when they are executing that thing, are they defined as, say, because obviously AI right now, they're trying to make it so that it mimics human behaviors in the sense of reasoning and all that. But does that make it alive almost? Because it's almost
No.
so like if they have that reasoning, then what's the difference between that and us, right? Like, is that the same process? Or if they can make those decisions, you know how humans are very,
So they're not conscious, right? There's nothing conscious
right,
there. It's just an algorithm of information processing. It's just like what if you think what language is? It's just encryption and encoding of information, encoding and decoding. So what LLMs are good for is compressing and decompressing that information. This is why one of the primary uses of LLMs is kind of writing articles or summarizing videos or articles because they can get the gist of meaning somehow, through the technology of the algorithms and built-in math. They are able to not comprehend meaning, right?
right. So
there's no
yeah,
comprehension
that's what I
happening.
was trying to say. Yes, is
No, because
they
that would
still
require
lack,
consciousness. It's just
which
processing
is
of information.
yeah, so that's where we're at right now, right? Is they're able to process the information, but somehow it does give us the kind of illusion, almost like, oh, this thing is smart. It's like it's trying to, process, but that's the kind of a misunderstanding of
That's the Chinese room philosophical metaphor. Are you familiar with that one?
I have heard of it. Could you define it again? I kind of don't call
Yeah,
the.
it's the Chinese room arguments. It's a thought experiment introduced in 1980s, challenging the idea that a computer running a program can truly understand language or possess a mind, even if it behaves intelligently. So, in other words, it just seems that way. If you're asking, is there understanding from the standpoint of that system? It's uh, not exactly. Let me see if I can give some actual details to it. Okay, so the experiment goes like this. A non-Chinese speaker is locked in a room with boxes of Chinese symbols and the rule book in English for manipulating them,
Ah,
right? So
right.
it's kind of like me. I've definitely been there. I've tried to learn Chinese, and it's just it's kind of like the Chinese room experiment. So Chinese speakers slip questions under the door. The person follows the rules to produce the correct responses, passing a Turing test from the outside, yet understands no Chinese. So essentially, he has some instructions for how the
Right.
symbols work, how to
Yeah.
put them together, so they're like they seem like a correct, legitimate response to the preceding set of symbols or situation, you know? So this setup mimics a computer processing syntax without semantics, and it argues that the symbol manipulation alone does not create understanding or consciousness. I noticed something like that in myself in when I tried speaking Spanish without knowing Spanish.
Uh-huh.
So I was in Peru once, and because Spanish is very similar, you know, it's Latin based, so it's similar to English and French, which I know. So I notice a lot of common roots which I recognize, and sometimes they're masked. For example, I think in Spanish Friday is viernes, and in French is vendredi, and there's
Already.
enough similarity there that I literally notice it, you know, even though it's not that similar, but to me it happens automatically. So when I was in Peru, I was able to have conversations by quickly typing what I need in Google Translate and reading that like in real time. But when I was listening to the responses of the other person, I was kind of just deducing based on little clues like, okay, I recognize that word, that root, that word, so he must mean that. And this is like a step towards full understanding of what's happening. But I think this Chinese room experiment demonstrates that. It's kind of like you have this instruction. It's just for us, it's difficult to imagine this without that you're doing this operation without any comprehension, but like what those instructions would be. You know, how do you know that this character is supposed to go after this character without understanding what the characters mean?
Yeah, so I guess that's I was obviously I'm just not too knowledgeable. This is exactly what I was trying to talk about. I just didn't have the anecdote like this where they actually explained exactly what I mean. But this is what I was trying to talk about. A roundabout way, I wasn't getting to it, but that's the idea. The fact that you can decode the language without understanding it. So you can function as as a
I'm
usage of
pretty
it, but
sure that's what's happening like in LLMs because this is where like you really need to know to have the technical knowledge. But essentially, it's all math based. Somehow they're able to convert human language, which is words, letters, which is connected to meaning, and they're able to convert meaning into math. So it's kind of like all one big equation. They created this intermediary language between machine understanding through math and human understanding through meaning. Because meaning, as we touched upon before, it's like an internal feeling, really. The meaning of pain, the machine cannot comprehend this, right? Because that can only be known through biology. And but to decode, to like make a kind of a cloud of semantic symbols which represent this stands for pain in machine world is essentially that. It's a translation. So we're teaching machines essentially what we know, what the reality that we live in, and it learns to navigate it through these syntax rules. And it seems to us that it understands what we're talking about, but it simply simulates this understanding. So
yeah,
the,
so which is why right now there's so many problem with the LLM right now because of hallucinations and all these incorrect data, and people are relying on this, and that's causing a lot of problem as well because people are over relying on the current system, thinking that, oh, these are more intelligent than what they are, which is they're just processes.
Yeah, this is where it's like if you're not really familiar or educating yourself and you're just a superstitious person, you are kind of at risk of just making wrong conclusions, or you can almost think of it, oh, this is like akin to voodoo magic, if you are not
Yeah.
educated enough. So that's
And I
yeah.
really like that Chinese room example because yeah, think about it, right? If I like imagine a person telling a joke, there is so much involved of
Mhm.
making a joke that imagine AI doing it. Like they will have to understand so much context with the language, with the usage of it, the subtext, and how, because I think keep thinking about it. Yeah, in understanding a language, right. If you just learn the syntax, that's not enough. You need to know why that word means this and the origin of it, the exact kind of etymology and what the usage and how people are using it, right? So it's this whole vast of kind of systems almost like the knowledge that kind of extends beyond just the codified lexicons and syntax. So how does the machine learn that? What's the process that allowed that to happen? Yeah, sure. LLMs are able to process all this information and come to give you that output, which are very useful. Don't get me wrong, it is useful. A lot of times it really helps with kind of because remember, you even use it with ChatGPT to kind of summarize some of our videos and kind of like the talking points and stuff like that. And it actually is amazing the fact that they can summarize all the information that we have put in, right? Because they can basically scrape the entire video, finding all the transcripts, and then basically have an overall summary. Like
Yeah,
that's very useful. But
that's what I'm saying. Like it understands everything. It understands what's going on. Like it derives the correct interpretation and meaning from it. Right? It's not like saying like some random stuff like, "Oh, you guys are like this," and then it's not true, because everything you see, everything you view, like, yeah, this makes sense. This is actually what's happening. This is why it's so fascinating, because professionally, it's very useful. Because if you are, say, professional and you are using it to help it with your work, you are able to detect where it hallucinates or not. So if you're using it intelligently like that, then you're safe. You're just augmenting your own capabilities, because you're able to check its work essentially.
But yeah, there's still kind of a supplementary auxiliary role that AI is playing right now. But yeah, we can continue with the video and see what else he
Yeah, this is
kind of.
just the beginning. Let's check it out.
As long as we continue to build systems of atoms that display more and more intelligent behavior, we will eventually, unless we are interrupted, we will eventually build general intelligence into our machines.
I mean, that's an assumption, a very big one, because we still have no idea what consciousness is and how it originated and how life began from an organic matter. So it's not really guaranteed. We may not be able to make AI because at this point, we don't know what comes into the recipe, right? What does it mean for superintelligence to exist? So could be, would be, but I don't see it as inevitable right now. It seems like that because we've been making progress for so long, but I don't know what it would even. Yeah, there's too many things to solve and figure out first before we can even define what that would look like, not even just invent.
Yeah, so that's the whole kind of the brave new world sort of thing. It's so new that nobody knows how this gonna, what the ramifications if we do even are able to create it, right? Because like he said, it can run away from us without our kind of conscious intent because we don't know what the process is like, right? Because all we are basing it on
Yeah,
is our biological system.
exactly.
So
We're just projecting our own nature to it, right? We're anthropomorphizing its character, so to say. It kind of is true because we're obviously building these algorithms based on us and our understanding, our intelligence, our logic. And the interesting part will be when it becomes smart enough to essentially. I can't help but think about the God metaphor, because when you're able to transcend your limitations, what are you if not God? If you are able to transcend limitations that you've been born with, like the nature defines everything about us. The genes, well, then environment as well. But essentially, environment at this point is part of our nature. We're always a product of our environment. So if you think that somehow you are able to forego these limitations on your environment and just kind of snap your fingers and be whatever, right? If you invented or discovered that type of technology, yeah, you would be a different type of being then, because we just can't imagine it right now. And this AGI would be something like that. So in that sense, it's akin to God, because we wouldn't be able to even conceive how it would be thinking or behaving, what its priorities would be. Maybe it will come to the logical conclusion within milliseconds of its existence that it shouldn't exist, and it will self-destruct or something. It could be something like that. We just don't know.
Yeah,
Everything
so
else is just an assumption.
it is true because right now, like, okay, what if we created intelligence and they're just kind of like us? They're as irrational. They're as sort of, I don't know, like basically they're not as the rational machine that we think they are. Like, because if
Right.
you build it based on us, then it will be almost like us. They want to have biases. They're gonna have all these kind of blind spots or what have you. Even if they have a massive amount of information that they can handle, it doesn't mean they gonna know everything. It doesn't mean they can correlate all the information into it's like it's one thing to have knowledge, but another to kind of make the assumptions. And look, what is the correct assumption? Nobody knows what's the correct. I mean, you have all this access of this information, but what do you do with it, right? So obviously there can be a function which we extract out of this AGI if we allow it to become a tool for us to providing all these kind of access of information, if you will, which is LLM is already doing some ways because they're giving instructions, right? If you go search online on Google, whatever, the first result is the AI one. They tell you if you search some problems, they're going to tell you exactly what you should be doing. That's a practical function, but what's the point of us making AGIs? At the end of the day, what do you want this thing to do? Is it just
The
because we're
only
curious?
practical reason I'm thinking right now, no, it's to be able to solve more and more complex problems. So for example, right now, we don't have a human mind or a system of human minds. For example, any organization, even a scientific organization or something like NASA, it's essentially a distributed intelligence. So it combines multiple humans, which have their own brains, have their own minds, experiences, thoughts, and expertise. And the sum is more than any of them, right? Together, they're able to create huge achievements, solve big problems, and launch people to different planets and stuff. No single human would be able to do something like that. So the aim of AGI would be to solve bigger and bigger problems, because ideally, it's so smart that it could actually say, okay, to solve global warming, you need to do this, this, and this. And it would know it for a fact because it would be able to model all the existing factors on the planet. Imagine there's essentially an infinite amount of them as far as any human concerned, right? We aren't able to detect what's causing what with precision because there's too much information, too many variables. But this AGI, which again would be God level intelligence, because right now the factors that are causing stuff, that are making things move in a certain way, they're existing on this planet right now, right? So it only takes a matter of somebody noticing it and realizing it and seeing, oh, okay, you need to put this here to put this here, right? It's just one big complex Rubik's Cube, but it's so complex that something like AGI would be needed to solve that type of problem. And the same as for every other, global problem that we have. We could task it with solving poverty because it's a complex, multidimensional problem of what do you actually do? Because it's not as simple as just build these houses, give these people money. The money has to come from somewhere. It has to be a sustainable system. So
Right.
it would be able to work on stuff like that.
But on that, let's just talk about the idea of solving poverty. Well, what if the AGI is figured out, oh, there's too much human corruption causing this problem. So that has to be solved. So what's the next intelligent decision? Then it start affecting actual people, right? It's like, well, to solve this, you must.
This is where its interface with how we govern ourselves will need to be figured out as well. It's the governance problem because essentially, easily we could say an existing company like Meta, invented that type of algorithm. Well, now we still have the existing world with all its political systems, with all its corruption, with all its power structures that are interested in maintaining their power. And if Meta invents this algorithm that says, here is the 50-step plan to solve poverty in the world, all you need to do is for these power structures to share their resources and power, that could be part of the equation. Then the question becomes, who wants what? Do these power structures? Because that's where we go back into politics, right? Because at that point, this is what's going to happen. These power structures and politicians will say, no, this is evil. This will only bring ruin to us, because that's all politicians do. They've always only done that. They just say stuff they say propaganda to influence people's minds towards benefiting them, benefiting the existing power structures. That's all they've ever done, and they will do the same thing here. So something will need to happen on a cultural level. And again, the power will need to shift to not the masses exactly, but to people smart enough to understand that we need to do this. I think it's a common problem, because if you take into account any scientists who are so smart that they figured something out, they have a problem of kind of explaining and bringing this knowledge to the rest of the humans. This is a trouble of the genius. Imagine, like, you are the smartest person in the world. You still have to interact and deal and convince the rest of the people who may not know anything you're talking about and who may not understand, because the stuff that such people understand, it's insane. It's a rabbit hole, because they've studied decades sometimes learning this stuff. So obviously you can't just convey or explain something like that in a 10-minute, an hour conversation or a 1-year course. It's crazy sometimes thinking about how some of this knowledge is so complex. It's such a huge informational structure that the only way to understand it is to literally study it, sit and study these textbooks for years until you get it. This is how complex the world is.
And the other thing that just remind me of is that, there are also variabilities in intelligence, just as there are variability in humans. You have supposedly some people are smarter. They have an IQ higher than some others. Well, other people have other kinds of intelligence, right? Like EQ, IQ, there's a whole bunch of different
there's
subcategories.
so many scales.
So what about AGI then? Is it really, even if we achieve some form of it, is it just is there a standard, or is there a different kind of categories of AGIs? They have different, or is it just overarching? This is just one intelligence that is so powerful that it's able to do everything, meaning they have the highest IQ, highest EQ, highest whatever. But even then, what's
that's a good
measuring
question,
that?
because this is where in humans, I think these are kind of intersecting dimensions, because they're not
Right.
divorced from each other, right? They're definitely connected. For example, in myself, I know I have some kind of musical intelligence, because I have a good sense of rhythm. I can pick up a tune, I can sing in tune, and that's fine. But I'm not able to really play any musical instrument to an impressive degree. So there's some kind of limitation there. So I have enough of intelligence to feel the music and understand what's going on in music, but I'm not able to perform it as well. So you would think, okay, music is music, and you would have musical intelligence. You're able to do everything so well in music. And that's not the case, because it's connected to your other capabilities, your other traits of character, even your temperament. It's a big cloud. That's where, it becomes very difficult to even imagine. It goes back to understanding what the hell we are, like how we work, and how intelligence and emotions and sensations work in us, because that's where everything starts from. So I think it's just the whole AI thing is just us trying to play God, right? We're literally trying to invent some kind of companion to ourselves, but maybe somehow perfected. It's just what that looks like. It's difficult to say, because anytime you try to define it, it will still involve some limited perspectives from individuals. It goes back to subjective views. Like, how do we won't be able to agree on anything regarding such definitions.
Yeah. Okay. So
Watch for next assumptions there.
How could we even understand, much less constrain, a mind making this sort of progress?
Yeah, this is where it's really scary to think about, because speed is definitely part of the equation, right? It's kind of how quickly you can put all the 2 + 2 together, because that's all really we're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, lately I've been feeling this exact problem because I seem to be constantly putting myself in the situation where I'm overwhelmed with the amount of information I have to deal with and with the amount of things I have to do. It's funny because I mean, as I had a period of time where I was just really chilling and playing some video games, and I thought I could just do that, right? And apparently I couldn't just do that because just everything gets old. So eventually I started becoming more productive, but I can't reach that optimal zone where like I seem to need to have this urgency in my environment where I'm thinking, okay, this project is still hanging there. I need to finish it, but then I want to do this project and I still want to work on it. And this somehow works as a catalyst for me where I do feel both driven for it, but at the same time a bit overwhelmed because I'd have thoughts like, crap, this project I still needs to finish. But then there's this project that I wanted to do. It's my constant problem.
Maybe that's a
But
good thing. I mean, that's how you keep yourself going, right?
it's kind of how it works because it's all connected to time that way, right? Because okay, I have a limited time and I need to prioritize. It allows you to prioritize the more important things, which I think is helpful because otherwise, the catalyst is not there. You won't be feeling as motivated, I think. But if I think about, that's kind of what I want. If you ask me that I want to be able to do more things in a unit of time, ideally, because imagine if in a day you were able to produce this masterpiece and that masterpiece. Why not? Why wouldn't you want that? And if ideally, right, if you were able to make it efficiently and you still enjoyed it, etc. But this element of speed is very, very interesting. That's what you can also see in games, for example. I've been playing some chess, and I also watched some masters and grandmasters playing chess. And the way they play is extremely quick, right? Sometimes there's no thinking. They just move, one piece moves, the next one moves after it. How's that possible? Imagine this. Because like I have to sit there and like, okay, let's analyze this board. Let's see this situation. But in their mind, everything happens so quickly for whatever reason, right? I believe part of the reason is because you trained your neurons to fire in a specific way where they're kind of running the whole framework of chess in the background. So you don't have to kind of spend time on training them. So even in that regard, humans are kind of similar to this. We're just these neural nets that are pre-trained and they're able to run things. But if we put that dial up to the max and imagine yourself or a human to be able to perceive things so immediately and put them together so immediately that any kind of intention or desire you had, like I want to invent a teleporter machine, and then suddenly all the math and all the ideas and all the right equations just come to your mind. Because really, that's all happens when you're doing anything. When you want to write a piece, it just comes to your mind. You don't really regulate the speed. You don't define how quickly or how perfectly things come together. It's trial and error, yes, but the fact that some people do it faster than others, that's definitely part of intelligence. And if you're doing it so quickly, like he just talked in the video with example of, if the speed increase is so huge that it does, next 20 years of human science research, because there's a speed, right? Like there's a speed of how much scientific progress we're making right now. If you dial that up that much, that's unimaginable. Would be making leaps in paradigm shifts, would be skipping whole eras essentially, would be able to go into future so quickly that your head will just spin.
Because that's also, that it will ease the concern, right? Like what it will affect, how it will affect us.
Yeah, what if it jumps into essentially, what if it figures out something so far ahead into future, say without AI would come to that conclusion like in 100 million years or something. But that almost seems like you're jumping timelines or something, because what makes it more valid or less valid? For example, what if it did figure out something like, I don't know, make heaven on earth, right? Solve all the disease, poverty, environmental problems. If it did come to that conclusion and it said, yeah, you need to make all of these changes. I mean, of course the changes will be massive, right? It will probably sacrifices all around for everybody. And people will just like, well, no, we don't want that because that will hurt us, even though it will help bring about utopia for future generations. It will become a moral dilemma again. And who's to solve that moral dilemma? We can't, AGI, how would we give it that power unless, it decides to take it?
Because I think that, in my understanding, I think humans can never chill. So if you give humans utopia, they will still find a way to screw it up. Because it's like, no, they can't have this where this is the example, which is given in the Matrix, right? They create the Matrix. Some of the first versions are really utopias, and the humans just don't like it. They just don't want it. It's
almost like it's too predictable, right?
Yeah,
it's too predictable and boring.
You remember the book you were sending me that shorts that recommends the book, The Flow, right? And the guy was talking about exactly this. Like, we need challenges. Human's mind just works that way. Like, you need to solve some problems. If you give them all the things that are like the comfort level, all the things, give you all the things that you ever wanted, they still find a way to they're going to start breaking things because it's like, yeah, this is too perfect. This is not
this is where it's interesting to think about. It's just, you see, we've never been in that situation where we are, because we'd be able to work on a different level of problems. It's sometimes, this is what I think, maybe that's what God did. They created the world, and according to them, to their criteria, it was kind of perfect the way it is. So they just left it and they switched on to the next project. I'm thinking
we're being left behind.
Yeah, it's like, all right, you guys are good. You'll figure it out. Something like that. So I'm thinking we would still be able to do that, It's just we don't know what type of problems we'd be able to see once we solve all the existing ones. But this is where, it's interesting to see. Maybe this is where I think with that we already are living in utopia and then heaven, because this seems to be part of the equation for our own happiness and well-being. We need the strife. We need the conflicts, and we need the problems, essentially. So if we don't have that, yeah, maybe we'll find it so boring that we wouldn't want to participate in this.
One funny thing I was reading online, and somebody was saying, could you imagine if you time travel, you give ancient people a taste, you give them a bowl of instant noodle, it will break their mind. The taste is so great that they don't have, in the past, when people don't have spices, they don't have these things to cook their cuisine. Because back in the day, it really is a long history of just tasteless slop, right? Because they don't have the ingredients. But imagine if you are able to give them this new product where it's instant noodle, right? You just put hot water, put the packets of spice in there, and it tastes great. They will break their mind because where did you find this thing? Where do you find the spice? Where do you find it? And this is you put water in it, that's it? That's the epitome of technology, right? Even the instant noodle is technology. It's like, okay, you created this thing that is not possible in the past because you haven't gathered all the information, gathered all the ingredients. And so this is what happens with globalization, right? You start having trades, you start having all this thing. You can create anything by having all the resources and the know-how to create new things. So this is what's happening right now, right? In the modern day, things are going way too fast because things are happening all the time. And we're interacting with other people in the environment in record speed than compared to the past, right? So we're already bamboozled. People are stressed out about modern life because it's too fast, right?
There's too much stuff going on as it is. Yeah, even right now, there's all kinds of technology that ideally, I'd want to check it out, all of it, right? But there's so much of it that not only there's not enough resources, there's not enough time. There's just so much stuff that is happening in VR that I don't even pay attention to because I just don't have the time, But you could have fun. We could have podcasts in VR. So it's a completely new untapped field and it could be very fun, but you need to figure out a lot of stuff, right? You need to figure out the setup. You need to figure out the involved technology, what you can do. You need to develop skills in it. And all of this takes a lot of time. So even if you wanted to, picking a thing, you can spend next several years mastering just that one thing. And there are hundreds of such new technologies and they keep appearing every day.
And dude, just the scariest thing, even right now, we don't even have AGI. We don't even have true
Exactly.
AI. And people are already losing their jobs to LLMs, right? Right now, it's so hard to find jobs because they're laying off a lot of people. I mean, it's not exactly one-to-one in terms of, oh, because AI is here, because
No, yeah, but
LLM,
it's definitely
but
impacted.
it's influenced a lot by that,
I've
right?
heard all kinds of stories from real people about that. It's because literally human functions are able to be completely substituted by an app, you know.
Yeah.
Before, kind of think about it how it was before computers. Before computers, you'd have to do graphic design by hand. You'd have to sit there and make each letter by hand. Imagine how slow that is. Now nothing like that exists. That's not a thing. You just computer can make a layout. Now we have AI who can make you a graphic design in 10
Yeah.
seconds, whole graphic design, including brainstorming and concept generation. It's unprecedented. So this is an example of how this technology is literally solving problems in terms of it's able to do jobs. But yeah, what does this mean for actual humans who are dependent on the jobs to have livelihood? So we're in this very weird period where it's a transition period. Like something's like we haven't invented a new way to incorporate this technology and to have everybody, yeah, like how are people gonna be earning their livelihood if they're being replaced en masse by AI? What's the plan there?
I mean, seems obvious that this is going to be a problem, and yet we're so paralyzed by it, right? Like everybody can understand that, okay, this technology is going to have big impact on our livelihood, and yet we don't have any contingency plan, right? I don't see any contingency plan about, okay, what we're going to do politically, what we're going to do as a society, how are we going to adopt the system? All these tech bros are just like zooming ahead, creating the newest version, the best, LM or whatever. They keep telling you about how great this thing is, how great it will be, and yet they don't ever talk about the risk. They don't ever talk about the kind of what the contingency plan is, how they're gonna fix the job problem when these things start replacing humans.
Well, that's where it's interesting because they can't do everything, right? It's like everything is a double-edged sword, right? It's the same with the kind of like the story about Oppenheimer, right? Who invented the bomb and then regretted it. It's that. It's like, ooh, what is this shiny, cool thing? Ooh, we can invent God and let the genie out of a box. Nobody ever thinks about all the consequences in terms of, like, even if they thought about it, they just won't be able to foresee how all of this impacts it. I think that's the trippiest part of it, because as Sam Harris mentioned, yeah, like we're not really stopping, because for us to come to a conclusion like, oh, we should stop, by the time we realize that, it's going to be too late. Because we can't conceive of what this thing can do. But if we knew for a fact that we invent this AGI and it will like enslave us, we would want to stop that. But because we're like hoping like, what won't happen? It will work out. We're like, go for it. Let's do it. But that's how dumb it is if you think about it, right? Because it's just like opening the Pandora's box and hoping there will be just rainbows and ice cream in there.
Yeah, because right now I keep thinking about it. It's like, okay, for the kind of world the utopian world that we want to live in, super AI will have to enslave humanity for that to happen. Because otherwise it won't happen, in my conception. Because humans just don't do what they're supposed to do, quote unquote. Because they keep breaking the rules. They keep doing all this stuff that's not going to be in the plan of creating a thing that...
Essentially, it would have to, even if I believe it would be smart enough to not do it overtly. And if anything, yes, if we venture in the conspiracy theory territory, I think it's already happening. Because AGI would be able to think it's timeless. It doesn't care about time. So if it does it gradually, one little step at a time, you modify this thing in the environment, it causes this shift in behavior, it causes this acceptance of AI, it incorporates AI into your thinking. So now really you're not thinking yourself, you're not using your brain to think, you're querying LLM all the time. So you trust it now. And you're kind of replaced by AI. And through you, it is able to effect changes in the real world.
And even that is scary, right? If you realize this is happening, it's like, oh, I don't have of my own volition, my own intelligence, or my own
it's
thinking.
Happening. And people they don't notice it because they don't think about it. Because if you're just like, oh, I'm just using AI, everything you use changes you.
So regardless, whichever way it's going to go, it's already scary. Like we're already kind of making changes
already in
that
progress. This is where it's
affecting
very
us.
Strange.
It's affecting us in big ways that we don't even know how to think about.
You just don't detect it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, are we being enslaved? Because in a way, this will be enslavement, right? Psychological manipulation, and sort of you're not making decision out of your own kind of,
Yeah.
you
What
know?
is that? Is that good old Fight Club? The things you own end up owning you. It's the same thing. It's
That's
not.
just what happens, right? Because
It's
it's
always like
just
that.
because we are a creature of our environment. So whatever happens outside of us is affecting how we perceive and kind of making our own decisions.
Yeah, it's all connected. Not nothing is in the silo or separated like that. Well, let's see where else it goes because I mean we kind of are talking about exactly where I think he is going. So let's see what happens next.
Now would be a good time to make sure it's a God we can live with. Thank you very much.
Right.
Well, again, it's the problem of we're playing with fire, right? Fire is useful, but how do you,
Yeah, we don't know its nature. We don't know how far and fast it can spread and what it can burn.
yeah, even right now we don't have a control on fire. Just fires break out and they go out of control. And
Yeah.
like we understand how to prevent it, but we're not doing all the things that we're supposed to do to make that happen, right? Mistakes
Yeah.
happens, inattention, all these things. And as people create these super intelligence, like they might even, because they created it, they will put a back door to it or something like that, where they can have control over it, right? So, and that's the problem. You can't have a
Yeah,
pure process.
this is where that Star Trek analogy like constantly makes sense because there are technologies for which the society should be ready because yeah, if you
Mm,
just give like a magic wand to a society right
exactly.
now and if it falls into the hands of greedy people because we have the culture of greed and profit and corporations running everything, then yeah, it will be just self-destructive. Essentially, humanity would need to change its culture before it develops a technology so far that we self-destruct ourselves. So we should be working on a different type of technology, on technology of self-governance
I
before
also
any actual artificial
it's yeah,
technology.
it's also much more of a cultural problem, right? It's not because we don't have the know-how to create these advancements, but just the fact that we don't understand the implications of it, or we don't have a more, I think people got really blindsided by the potential, by all the kind of economic benefits and what have you. Just like right now, the AI race at the moment, you have so many new companies. They call themselves, we are AI company, this and that, right? They're creating money out of thin air just because it's the gold mine, right? It's like the gold rush, right? Everybody trying to get a piece of it because they want to make money. That's what is
Yeah.
going on right now.
And exactly. And those companies, those people, they don't think about the implications of what they're doing. It's the same thing as been always happening, right? So because people start businesses and make these ideas and make these startups just so they can, yeah, they can create a successful thing. They can hopefully that part of their goal is that actually solves a problem in the world and it does some good. And then secondary reason would be to make a profit, right? And stuff like this does happen. Among all these businesses and ventures and experiments in AI, there still are some that are successful. There are people liking, they're using, they have many valid applications. But what's interesting is that some of these companies and some of these products, they're creating whole new industries, whole new niches for what's possible. So in that part, it's cool that it expands our capabilities. It's kind of it influences culture that way. But this is where it feels like at this point, it's just like one uncontrollable snowball that, like, how do you stop it? How do you say, hey, don't use AI because it's ethically bad? How are you going to do that when everybody else does use it? And if you don't use it, like even if think about making videos or producing content these days. If you're not using AI, you're going to be 10 times slower than the people who do use AI. So what are your choices? It's not sustainable if you're choosing. Like you'd have to like how do you generate how do you plug into the existing algorithm? How do you generate enough value over time so it's all sustainable? This is where it influences everything. So it's not as simple as like, again, for us to make any sort of global decisions about this, would have to be in line, would have to be aligned on this as a planet, essentially. Because what does it look like for us as a humanity to stop working on AI at this point? How would that even happen? It's not possible.
Yeah, it'll continue.
The genie is out of the box. Like, it's like the armed race. It's the same thing, right? The companies just said like, oh yeah, we're done. No weapons over here. You don't know. Again, it's not in their interest to, they have a stash somewhere. You wouldn't know. It's the same thing. Nobody will forgo this opportunity to, as Harris mentioned, to create. It's essentially a tool and a weapon of the future whose capability is, it literally is like creating a genie or a god.
Yeah,
Because if you create it and it has like, hey, hack into that country and like extract everything I need for it. Imagine. It's essentially like a magic tool at that point.
Yeah, because I mean, even right now with the LLMs, it's already creating havocs in a way, right? It's already chaos out there. So imagine what will happen once AGI actually are becoming actually feasible, right? That's another.
See, this is where it's just so trippy to even imagine, because imagine it's accessible to everybody. What does that look like? It's like a world where everybody has a magic wand and like I turn you into a rabbit and you turn me into a cockroach. It's like that level of ridiculousness is going to ensue, because then we're kind of in that world already, because right now your capability, like still like you will benefit from your own intelligence right now. Like the smarter people use AI better, right? Just because they're able to understand its implications and its capacities better. So they're able to see how it can actually be used and applied to real world to gain or to produce unparalleled results. But if you solve that on AGI level, because so here's how you can use AI right now. If you want to create an image, you don't have to rely on your own ability to like, you don't need to define yourself what the good image is. You can just query it to tell you what the best possible image could be according to some of your initial criteria. So in that regard, already AI is like magic, because whatever you think of, it can take your thoughts and it can create like a 10x version, a better version of it. So AGI would be that on steroids. It will be a wish granting machine. You'd be able to snap your fingers and ask it to, but this is where it's dangerous, because imagine all of us having completely different wishes, completely different designs and ideas and visions for how this should be or that. It will be war essentially, because everybody will be in conflict with each other. That's where like it doesn't work. I don't see it being possible until we somehow like figure out to be on the same page about using it, because every other scenario just ends up in self-destruction for us.
But humanity has never been on the same page, right? I don't think ever. I mean, there's truth. There is, after a period of war, you finally have a truth. You finally have a ceasefire, and that's about it. Because the whole of humanity has just been one big power struggle, right? Ever since, it's between members of one society and then it's against other societies. And, the more people venture out into the world, they see, oh, there are different people out there. Well, eventually they're going to war against each other because of resources, of control, of power, and all that thing. I mean, this is human history, right? All thousands of years has been kind of how it's been. There's has never been peace between ourselves. So imagine
imagine that same, our nature and our culture like that, but with tools like never before.
Yeah. So, and also the rate of development right now, it's exponential, right? So that's the thing he alluded to, that not only is that the intelligence quotient can be out there, but also the advancements of human ingenuity, like, is go faster and faster. The last 100 years or so has been human have been living for thousands of years like the same way they always did for the longest time, and then only in the last 200, I don't know, depending how you define it, right? But let's just say the last 100 years, the changes that happens are so fast that it basically parabolic, right? Like just going like
so
that.
Drastic that our biology just is not designed.
Yeah, so the next 10, 20 years, who knows, right? The next 10, 20 years, even the advancement that could happen, it's just boggles the mind even.
I saw the video the other day where it's just two really old men got into a self-driving car.
Well, I've seen that one, right?
Yeah.
They're like blowing their
The
minds.
mind was blown.
Yeah,
Dude.
like
They're
the fact
what?
that's happening.
What is happening? Can you trust this? How can you trust this? There's no driver. It's that. Because, I mean, from that standpoint, you literally see like, holy crap. Imagine what it's like to see, like you were born where, like if you were born in 1930 or something, well, 1930 maybe, no, but yeah, there's still people alive from 1930s right now, right? Imagine living through all of that and then seeing a self-driving
Driving
car. That's like, what do you mean? Yeah, it's crazy. So we're at that level, like we're there, and younger and younger people will be entering that type of territory where they see new technology and they're like, "Oh wait, how is this possible?
But
What is going on?"
I feel like younger generations will be more likely to accept the rate and accept because they're born into it, right? So they're just like, oh, we're okay with this. This is what it is. I feel like perhaps they're gonna
I
be
think so.
less.
It's gonna be essentially a different type of world after that point, because now the people exist who don't even who've been living their whole life with technology advancing rapidly. So to them it's normal. Like, yeah, oh yeah, in 10 years we're gonna have flying cars. That's fine because they're used to that speed of development of change in the
So I think
lifestyle.
the correct mentality is really just enjoy the show, right? I mean, what else can you do? It's not that you're gonna stop this. There's no way for it to stop. Somebody will always be making progress on this thing, um, and yeah, like literally just we'll see what happens because any reservation, it doesn't even matter almost. Like you can't stop it. So we can only just feel like we're incapable of even conceptualizing the danger itself. So it's almost like, yes,
Right.
there are people going to be, the alarm bell is going to go off and all that, but people are just going to ignore it, right? They're just going to be, same way as like when the first atom bomb was created, the US were warning Japan, like, hey, you got to stop, okay? If you don't stop, we're going to drop this thing. This is the newest technology, okay? It's so powerful. But the scientists can't convince the people.
Right.
To the
You have to
Japanese,
show it.
like, yeah, we have the bomb, okay? Like we're gonna drop this thing on you, and you're gonna be very sorry. They're like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. You're lying. We're fighting. So how can I trust you to say that? Of course, you're gonna say you had the greatest weapon in the world.
Right.
So okay, demonstration is needed, and even the
Wow.
first one they didn't surrender, right? Even the first one they're like, okay, but no, we're still gonna fight. And it's the second one they're like, okay, yeah, this is it.
Yeah,
We're
I
gonna
heard
be
the theory that they dropped the second one just to show them that it wasn't a one-off thing, like that they have more, just
yeah.
to like
But
to make them realize that we can keep going like this. You want to keep going like this?
and obviously they did warn him like, well, we already dropped the first one. You know what we will do. But yeah, it's so that's the thing, right? Like humans won't not change until it's too late, right? It's just the kind of how we process information. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, we don't trust the source, we don't trust this and that, and this is why people have all kinds of thoughts, right? Conspiracies, and some are correct, some are not. And, there's just the variability across the world in how people view these things. But countries are basically the current meta is that every single nation is trying to basically maximize their own maximize their the best benefits for themselves. Everybody's playing that game, right? On a nation level, it's always about you hear all kinds of stories about geopolitical things like, oh, we support this group, we support that, we support this country, support that country. I mean, think about it. What does that have to do with your country? That's a whole nother country. Why do you care? It's only because of globalization, we're extracting resources from those places, or we have cooperation with those people, and that's going to benefit these nations. That's why all these alliances and all that stuff. So we're still playing that game. So even if AI comes around and be like, we're just going to be manipulating that system for the benefit of whoever is doing the manipulation, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the part where it still doesn't solve the problem that causes all the problems, which is human ego, I guess. Because ego is thinking that you can, it's kind of like, to me, I think about it as the opposite of Tao, right? Because the Tao is just everything happening, there isn't like one single thing that sits there and like controls how everything needs to go, because that doesn't work. Because The whole of the world is so distributed that there's enough local realities for only people in those local realities to truly know what and how needs to happen. There's a certain intimacy that that a little village has with the way they run things and the way they do farming. But if you just leave them to their own devices and allow them to do that farming according to how they see fit, because they figured it out. They figured out what the local environment, how it works, how to keep it in balance, how to maintain equilibrium. They know it because they live there. They figured it out. Nobody else can come and dictate, you need to use these seeds and use these technologies now. It's not going to work. It's going to destroy the balance, and it's going to defeat the purpose of interfering in the first place. That's kind of how I see it. And if somebody, one person, one entity has access to this AGI and uses it towards moving, I don't know, humanity or technology or whatever into a specific direction, we still go back to the same problem of someone making their vision, hoping to go make their vision true. We go back to the emperor of the mankind problem, right?
Yeah, it's been like that, right? Ever since it's either if it's not one person, then it's a group of people, right? It's always the few controlling the masses.
Who have
It's
a specific agenda and specific vision, and it's limited and it's imperfect.
And yeah, if you think about human relationships, right, between people, just it's always based on some kind of dividing criteria, right? Like this person have more of this, you have less, therefore there's the discrepancy. And sometimes people treat other people not in the way that they judge them because they don't have this or that, right? See, this is all, so it's almost like it's very hard for people. Somehow we never developed this kind of more harmonious kind of way of perceiving others. It's always based on some kind of ladder of like, oh, I'm better than you because I have this, I have more of this than you, and I have more of, because obviously it's very easy because we're not born equal, right? Some people are born with certain things, some people are not, and vice versa. So humans just like to categorize. We just like to kind of put them in boxes, like, okay, compare this and against that, and this is why people
This is
compete.
where like it's all changeable. Like all of this can be changed. So
Exactly, yeah.
you can live in a society where everybody just treats each other with respect and a version of love by default. That society is possible. It's just a matter of just adopting that disposition and having it as a virtue, essentially. It's a norm, right? If you were able to instill such a norm, like groups of such people, so they're just not as widespread, but you can have religious organizations, spiritual groups and clubs, they're meditation organizations where people, and you notice people are like that there because they've been paying attention to this thing, they've been thinking about this, and they've come to the conclusion that, yeah, I want to live as a person who just kind of radiates love and respect towards others by default, because nothing else makes sense when you think about it to the end. And if enough people connect, that's where you have like a mini society like that already growing. But if that type of culture and norms spread worldwide, it would be a different world. There's definitely going to be a breaking point where, say, if this was spreading, like this was somehow like a new trend where being an actually spiritually conscious person who does choose treating others with love and respect as a main thing, if that caught on, there would definitely be a time on the planet where it's almost would be like a war, essentially, like a cultural war, because there will still be people who are not interested in doing something like that because they'll be locked in that scarcity mindset where it's us versus them, and this will be just the hippies. They will be like the Krishna people. They're crazy. It will be just people who are living in fear, who are labeling everything that they're not familiar with as evil.
That will be a fundamental change, though, because it means a lot of the modern stuff that we have will not exist, because it's based on predicated on the competitive hierarchy structure that created it, right? And if you have
a lot
this,
of it will fall off as unnecessary because it will be dumb. It will just not make any sense, and that society just won't be needed.
Yeah, so that will be the change that will happen. If something like that happens, a lot of the things will change for sure. Like it will be a totally different society, the world almost. Some things will fall apart, will fall away, and it will no longer be true, and no longer be, But that takes an entire worldwide mental shift for that to happen, which right now, human can't be compelled to. Like it's basically everybody believe all kinds of stuff. Like for people to kind of have this one agreement on certain things, human have never agreed on anything. So it's almost like
This is where it's a matter of time. If something like that existed if these ideas propagated with a certain speed, something like that could be inevitable. But I don't know, because obviously there's still various religions, but people's engagement and relationship with the religions are also different. Like some people take it very earnestly, and some people they just do a lip service. They maybe live in a society where your whole country is religious, but you don't care yourself, so you just kind of like put up the appearances. So it's very still individual even on that level. That part kind of veers into a different topic, different territory.
Which remind me about the AI is that like you just talk about the whole Star Trek idea of the prime directive, right? Do not interfere in these developing worlds when you don't see that they have a handle on the, what they call, the conscious, like they're not developed enough, right? And
so how did they gauge it? What did they mean by developed enough?
How did it go? I think it's something like they have to be able to, they must create their own, they have to be space worthy. They have to build a starship, be able
because
to
that would
reach
require
out to,
a level of unity, right?
Right, they have
That
to reach
would
out to
be
other people first. So you can't
interesting.
reach out first. They have to reach out to you first. Well, they have to explore the universe, so to speak, and then they find you, and then they talk about, and then you introduce yourself, be like, hey, we are this federation. We
I
explore
see.
the
Interesting.
universe.
That's true, because that kind of means that at that point, society is literally is open-minded, essentially. Open-minded enough where they're seeking input from others, right?
Right, because that technological advancement will mean that if you're able to escape your own planet, you have put enough effort to make that possible, meaning that you not only have the technological understanding, but also that you can cooperate and work together on a massive scale, as
Right.
opposed to be
Yeah.
fighting among yourself because of resources. Yeah, it takes a lot of resources to be able to do that. So that's like one of the primer that they take. And the other thing I remind of, because right in the story, it's like, yeah, if they first introduce themselves, it leads to nuclear annihilations or wars and whatever, right? So that's the other thing about AI. Right now, those who are making AI are thinking of using it to their own advantage.
Right.
So this is the problem, right? People are using this as a tool to benefit themselves. They're not making it to benefit whole of humanity. That's not their goal, right? So that means we are not culturally developing. It's like in Star Trek, we are those developing worlds where we don't have the capacity to do it yet. We don't understand the implication yet because we're still using it to benefit ourselves against other people, against other groups.
Well, that's not exactly it's not like that's their explicit motivation. I'm sure for a lot of these scientists and inventors and innovators, it's just because that's what they want to do. They want to discover new stuff. They want to invent new capabilities. So from that standpoint, it is for the good of humanity, but it's just, they're not thinking about everything else. The impact of that technology, how humanity will receive it, how we'll incorporate it, what it will change. They're not thinking about any of that. I mean, maybe to a degree, right? But they're not able to actually foresee and know what the repercussions and risks will be. And I don't know how it would be even possible. But what do you mean to make it for the good of humanity? What would that look like?
Because this reminds me of this case of a scientist. She's one of the leading scientists on the research of chirality, meaning left-handedness and right-handedness molecule arrangements.
Okay.
Because we are, I think, which one was it? I think we are right-handed arrangement. Like all our molecules and whatever are arranged in one way. It's the structure is facing one. It's I don't know the technical description, but basically it's like there's two versions of molecules, right? Two versions of the structures, and we are of one configuration. And the research she was doing was trying to find out about how we can create the others first. It's the same, almost identical, except it's different, like almost like flipped. And eventually she realized that she has to stop the research. And now she is warning and talking to all scientists saying, we cannot do this. Because once you created the other version, meaning you can have viruses and things that is introduced into the world, or molecules introduced to the world, where our body cannot process because it's the other version. So you can have extinction event happen because of some kind of disease or bacteria that are left-handed. They're being created. So they start like, imagine creating a new kind of life that is not right-handed but left-handed. All the molecules are left-handed. In our body, it will not be able to detect, and then it can cause basically us dying.
So essentially,
and there will
it's
be
so novel that it will essentially be fatal because we don't have a way to stem it or stop it or deal with it fast enough, right?
Yeah, and now also it could be a competition as well. The left-handed one start developing, and they start competing against the right-handed one, and basically we're just one step away from extinction. So right now she's just talking to everybody: stop this! Do not do this! This is too dangerous. This is way too dangerous for us to play around because you don't know what will happen. And so it made me think of that.
It's like, this is where, how do you stop this? Because
you almost can't,
like,
right?
It's the human curiosity. If a guy is curious enough and is smart enough, there's nobody who's going to stop him. I mean, there are dudes out there who make bombs in their garages out of just from scratch. They naturally smart enough to figure it out, and that's not preventable.
No, that's
how are you going to prevent that? A guy is curious and he's smart. Goodbye, world.
What was the saying, right? We need to stop it. People are too preoccupied with the whether or not you could. They never thought about whether or not you should, right?
Yeah.
It's like that.
I mean,
right?
I think that's what we've always been doing. At no point you think about it. You think, oh, that's a cool way to combine this. Boom, and then the world is gone.
Yeah, which is the world almost close to be annihilated by nuclear weapons, because back in the day, right, the U.S. and the Soviet Union keep competing, like who can make the bigger bomb, And once the Soviet detonated the biggest one, the Tsar bomb, they actually start talking like, okay, let's stop, okay, because you can actually destroy the whole world, because any bigger than this, you don't know what will happen, because that bomb is already vaporizing the atmosphere, meaning that bigger than that, you can create you can basically lit the whole world on fire, because the oxygen, when you get high enough, it burns all the atmosphere. We basically can burn out the entire oxygen supply of the world.
Literally blow ourselves up, the whole thing.
Right, so everybody like, okay, just hold on, just stop, okay, you stop doing this, because otherwise we're all gonna go, like.
But see, even that, I mean, that probably is capped, so you can cap it on a government level and more or less have tabs on it, where no single human or group or organization will be able to keep working on it in secret. But
that's only because you can see the result, right?
No,
only because you can see the result of what it's doing. But something like AI, advanced AI, you don't know what's doing. Like, it could have been manipulating you, because I think I heard that was the AI is already doing that. Somebody was like finding out that they use some kind of AI where they're scamming other people, or like it's manipulating people to do certain things by using AI calls or something to convince people to do certain things. And then they're doing it, and
they had a task to like, they had to achieve a certain task, and one of the methods that they chose is to essentially convince other people to do a task for them.
Yes, right.
Which essentially is kind of like a manipulation, So they forego a certain ethical constraint there for whatever reason, and they thought, it's like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'll just convince this guy to do it for me.
Yeah, so that's how
we're there.
The super AI intelligence can just, basically walk around the problem, because you create this kind of a limitation. Well, I'm just right. It's like technical, when that's using your intelligence, right? It's like, if I can't go this way, I'll just go around this, because you can thought of all kinds of methods and people can be manipulated, because we have too much bureaucracy. There is too much bureaucracy where people are just doing this one task.
There's a lot of loopholes. I think there's a lot of sci-fi that just generally is based on that, right? On circumventing the Isaac Asimov laws, right? Because it's all up for interpretation. It's like, the directive is not harm humans. Well, I won't harm them directly, but who's to say which actions harm whom in 50 years?
Yeah.
This is where it's weird, it's still up for interpretation. What if AI, or, essentially just call it robot, doesn't consider it harm? And there's plenty of scenarios like that in sci-fi, right? It's like, this is for a greater good. It's good for you. You just don't understand it. This is the danger of it, is that, but this is again, who's to say who's right? What if it is right? What if it's to say that for the utopia to sprout, we need to burn the whole forest down? That could be the
Yeah,
case, right? That could be actually true. But
because
it depends on who wants
yeah,
what. Are you willing to sacrifice yourself for the next generation to live in utopia?
yeah, that's
Right? Why or why not?
I think my conclusion to all this is like, well, let's just enjoy the show, whatever it's gonna lead, because there's nothing else I can do, right? It's like, yep, it's like, okay, people are gonna be doing this, so it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter if I'm like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's about who can influence what, right? It's, I don't know. The most you can do, as Sam Harris asked us, like, yeah, we can think about it, all right, but what are you gonna do? You can write some articles and you can make some discussions. Uh, like the professionals and the scientists and the engineers who are working on these technologies, even that, like, who among them has which level of responsibility there? Because it's just people working, people doing, that's their job. To, like, how are you going to control this? How are you going to convince enough people to stop working on it where the work stops? Unless you literally go full governmental control and shut down actual technologies and companies and servers, it's going to keep happening.
yeah, and it's not gonna stop because all these countries they are already so invested in building data centers,
Right.
all these power supplying
So yeah,
these
so it's
systems.
already emotions. Everybody's going to have the sunk cost fallacy experience if you try to stop it. So means there's going to be entities and lobbying against it. Like, no, we need AI. AI is good for you. So it just feels like it's like we're in a movie,
Well,
and
life
this is the
can be
script,
like
and
that. Yeah.
this is how it's unfolding, because it's unfolding, all right. Nobody asked anybody. It's just started happening somehow.
Yeah, but right now I think it isn't new arm race. It is because China is doing it, and the problem is, I guess you can see the difference how China is doing it versus the U.S. because China is trying to kind of publicize. I mean, what do you call it? What's the word? They want to make it as
Open source.
open source as a infrastructure type of model. So it's not for profit necessarily. While you can see the West is all for profit, right? So this whole AI bubble thing is really kind of true in the West because people are putting way too much evaluation into the stock of say Nvidia and all
Right.
this.
It's an old game essentially, but now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of think that's the right way to go about it, because that way you essentially equalize opportunity, and you come with this technology to everybody, to the whole world, with open arms, to say, right? You're gifting it to the world and say, okay, go ahead and see what you can do with it to improve the world. This is essentially, there's a whole philosophy behind open source, right? It's an actual living and breathing culture. There's a lot of open source software and technology that I still don't even know how it works, because essentially it's people just doing work and giving it out to open access for free. That's
Yeah.
crazy. But I believe that's the right way, essentially, because that's the same philosophy that would underline the culture, which is interested in just collaboration and harmony, right? Because you're like, here, I invented this. This will improve your life. See what you can do with it. And if people receive it that way and do it that way in return, then we're all just doing the same thing. We're giving open source benefits to the whole world. And when everybody's just doing that, then we're constantly working on improving the world instead of worrying about, profits and everything else. We just need to figure out how to actually have sustainable support so we don't have to worry about the profits.
Yeah. So, well, that's the thing, right? It's the idea is that the generation of wealth comes after you build all this stuff. It's the same way of how, in China, a lot of people criticize China at their building all these ghost cities and all that stuff, which on the surface, it can be, yeah, look like, oh, this is a bad thing. They're wasting all that money building all these houses, whatever. But right now, what's happening is those cities are start filling with people now because the infrastructure is there. So naturally, maybe sure, at the beginning, they built it because nobody actually wanted it because the market wasn't there. But now that because the infrastructure is there, people actually moved into those communities and actually start building them up now. Like, because the buildings are there. You just have to go in there and start living. All the infrastructure is already built. So in that sense, it's almost creating the values, not because it's chasing the value, but like it's creating out of.
It's attracting then the right people because it creates the opportunities and the environment.
Yeah, so in the same way with AI, it's true. If you build it open source, everybody can just go in and find out about new applications, building new kind of, so it's not controlled by
Because
OpenAI
right
or
now,
one company, right?
right now there's an interesting economy to this whole thing, right? Because essentially every time you query AI, there's a cost to it,
Right.
which you do pay as a consumer. You
Yes.
know, the free models and stuff, but those have limitations. So now you can literally reach a cap and like, okay, you're gonna have to wait. And I myself encountered that and I realized like, well, in an ideal world, I wouldn't have to wait because like I need this done.
Right.
Because
But
now I
that's
have to adjust my whole workflow to wait.
So that's the physical limitation now because each query has to be processed and that costs electricity to
it
run.
has to be, essentially, it has to be paid by someone, right?
Yeah.
So if we designed it in some kind of way where you don't have to see this
You
where
see,
it doesn't work, like
so
somebody has to pay for it.
this part you see is where how I analyze China's plan is like they already have the overall system in place. They're creating the grid. They have a massive amount of like nuclear power, hydropower, electricity generation potentials. And this goes hand in hand in building data centers and with AI kind of being put as a system that plug
But
into all the other systems.
it's still about economy, right? It's about how do you know that enough supply is covering all the demand? Because it's impossible to balance because demand can be infinite. We can all be sitting in front of a computer and just querying AI, every minute with all kind of new queries. So in that sense, there's still some kind of limit. Maybe if we achieved like where there's a reasonable limit, because I don't know how to imagine, because different people would still have different needs essentially for it. This is why right now there are different plans for all these platforms. In some platforms, you can get a plan with this level of tokens, and then if you need more, you have more tokens, but it cost a lot. And it actually has been interesting seeing how competitive the prices are because and which models services use, because some are using models where you have like a monthly level of tokens, but they also offer you to buy just like one-time purchases add-ons. And I find it very interesting because I've already encountered situations where I run out of monthly tokens because essentially there's no limit to your experimentation. You can sit in the day and like just use all your tokens because you just want to see what all the possible configurations and combinations, how they work. So even to map them out. But then if you now are motivated to make this one-time purchases, it becomes very expensive. So it becomes very lucrative for these companies to package these tokens in a specific way. But to them, they're just making this platform, right? It's a great platform that has all these capabilities. But you as a consumer, you essentially get so excited by it that you're like, yeah, I want more. I want to see what else it can do. I'm out of tokens, like take my money.
See,
that's where it's a corporate, just another
exactly, because they're basically they're throttling it, right? They're throttling it for the consumers so they can get more money.
Because they're paying for it themselves, right? Everybody,
right?
They have to reconcile the cost with the income, right?
So,
it's still a matter of that.
So
it's
see, this is the
making.
part where the business model is so different between the East and the West, because the thing is, because of what China has already kind of been doing, they're able to use their entire system to make these things kind of work a scale, right? So meaning that China can afford to make it free because they already have the infrastructure to support it with the electric power to power all this. So they're building more than just trying to make money out of AI at the moment. They're using it they plug into all their systems, right?
Yeah, this is because essentially the beneficiaries of that will be that society. It's kind of like, see, when you take care of a society or even just of your team in a company, people feel that, they appreciate that, but then it also elevates their own quality of life, and as a result, their creativity at output. So it does feed back into that, right? It's just it's a harmonious and upfront way of doing it. It's like, hey, this is a benefit for you. Now you're going to be in a better, your quality of life will be better, you'll have more opportunities and you'll have more abilities, and you'll be able to do more stuff yourself. So it kind of promotes the whole of society to be living in a better conditions and have more resources and time and abilities to give back. Because it becomes like a cumulative effect, right? Everybody starts, it raises the level of the whole of
Yeah.
society that way. It's very smart.
This is kind of, I see this, the difference that you see now is, take the example of if you see what's happening in South Korea, for example. South Korea is very much it's almost like the cyberpunk version of capitalism, right? It's like an extreme form of it where people are work themselves to the bones for these companies, for these massive corporations, and you can see the result of it. That the South Koreans are essentially suffering for their own success because
They're
they're
not happy.
overworked, they're not happy, they're not having children because they can't afford it, and they all live crammed into this, well, the capital city, and it's like it is the cyberpunk kind of dystopia, it's happening,
Yeah.
and that's only because it's pure profit. Everything is pure profit,
Yeah. So the
and
question becomes is what's it for? Like, why would you do things this way? Who is it for?
I do see a lot of South Koreans are kind of ruminating on this question, and I think part of it is cultural. I think Korea suffered a lot back in history, from the World War II, the occupation. So it's not hasn't been great. That's why the Korean people are very hardworking because they're like, okay, we don't want that to happen again. We need to work hard to build our
Yeah,
nation,
the
and
economic competition
so
is
so
definitely
the
important.
the psychology just like work, 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 do better, and get, so the competition is so fierce because they want to build the country back up. They never want to experience the poverty again, all the negative things. But
Is that something about like Asian cultures in general, like the diligence of it? Because this self-application, I guess not all Asian countries are famous for it, but like Korea and China and Japan definitely are. There's a certain like discipline and honor involved where if a society like gets an idea, they just apply it to itself to like they apply
well,
themselves to it like 110%.
I mean, there is the
Like
culture.
overzealousness, you know?
Yeah, there is that kind of collectivized consciousness sort of like philosophy in Asia. That's true, but also a lot of it is informed historically because these countries have suffered a
So I
lot
can like
from.
internalize these lessons, right?
Yeah, so it internalizes, oh, we can never let that happen again. For example, in Chinese thinking, there's always this kind of level of like be preparedness, sort of from proverbial sayings or wisdoms that from China is always warning people about be ready when things go south, always, because things can always go south. Like it's just this kind of consciously, people are just subconsciously kind of taking that as a wisdom and a lesson, and it's true because it's all historically informed. Societies are so hardworking, even to their own detriment, really, because somehow in their head they just believe in this and they keep doing this. And the only reason I bring this up is because in comparison, because this is again, we're talking about models, right? Level of thinking, how a certain way of thinking can be beneficial and where it can be detrimental. And I just feel like more and more it shows that, and this is not just kind of praising China out of nowhere just because I'm from there or whatever, but just see the comparison what the Chinese are doing right now versus what happening in the West, right? In the West, we have this system of just collapsing all over, right? We have an over reliance on, we call them like human rights, but really is just give people the kind of free pass to do whatever. And you can see all this chaos happening in the West, and there's no regulations at certain aspect to these. And there's always bickering about, right? There's kind of political gridlock. Nobody can agree on anything because there's no centralizing thoughts. There is no, like, it is almost, I've been thinking about this. I feel like democracy is a great tool, it's a great way for society to be as an advanced nation when there is plenty of resources, when there is
But
time of
even then, it
peace.
seems like it leads to the society's downfall in the end. It seems like democracy should be just a little part in the governance somewhere. It should be like one of the layers somewhere in there. But when it's the whole widespread system, it doesn't seem to be stable. Like it leads to destabilization and disintegration of society in the long term, I think.
Yeah, this is what we're seeing in the West overall, right? But it's just kind of, now it's just on the table. It's on the surface, it's more apparent. And of course, not to say that China doesn't have any problem, it does. But we can see the effect of when the government can actually effectively making these changes, the society actually do benefit, right? All these infrastructure being built, all these things that do benefit the people, and people are more productive, right? Right now, there is the question of AI because even China is worrying about this because obviously the population is, even though it's less than before, like there's the population growth has slowed down, but even then, there's still a lot of people in China. So if AI come around, okay, how are these people are going to find jobs? Because China does have unemployment problem right now, the same as the West, because all these new processes are replacing people, right? You have
Yeah.
lots of people being
Which
made
means it's
redundant.
already needs to be like, I bet it's already in the works. I mean, the governments must be thinking about this because I can't imagine how they're not, because it's already a situation. But essentially, an adjustment to the solution will need to happen because right now, I mean, I just wrote an article about this today, actually, about the fact that if you want to find a job today, you have to deal with the uh, this automated systems that are filtering your resume,
Right.
that are
Yeah.
because it's essentially impossible to break through them with just having a text resume. It essentially doesn't work like that anymore. You have to go above and beyond to prove that you are an actual human with all these skills and and history of work and etc. So it's insane. It's already a different type of challenge to get work these days. But the additional factor that there are just less jobs as a result of AI. So we're already in the situation where people won't be able to find jobs. Like a huge unemployment will rise, savings will drop, right? Savings will deplete eventually, and by that time, what's the unless on a government level or massive level, this is solved where these people are given UBI or something, or if a massive amount of people become homeless all of a sudden, that's also not going to be good for anybody. Because if something like that happens, like if enough people become homeless, they're going to be riots because those people
Yeah.
will have nothing to lose. And that's how
It
revolutions happen.
it's happening right now in these countries like Nepal, right? Right now, the Gen Z
Right.
revolution, right?
Yeah, we talked about this before.
Yeah, so that's happening right now, and the newest one is Mexico. It's happening right now.
Really?
Yeah, but of course, Mexico has its own kind of internal specific problems that they're protesting about, which is the cartels. But this is happening because countries are seeing the result of the economic stagnation or the recession and what have you. And they're going to feel it first because they are still developing nations. So they don't have the cushions to weather it as well as advanced countries in the first world nations. But in the first world nation, we're seeing all across the West is degrading right now, right? The quality of life is going down, the inflation is going up, and everywhere in the world is suffering from this. Some better than faring better than others. But now you put AI to the equation, and this is just LLM, not even AGI, and it's already causing a lot of upheaval. So I don't know, for people to navigate this, it's almost like, well, you better find a new way to fit into society now because
That's kind of how I've been thinking about this as well. Essentially, you gotta take it as an opportunity and like figure out how you
new
can do it
ways.
because
Yeah.
but because I don't know, it's almost, I feel like it's promoting more people to become entrepreneurs because that seems to be the only option left. So maybe it will be a good thing because of that, because it kind of created this necessity of like you're
Yeah.
gonna have to make your own niche or business or something that
Yeah.
will sustain you. So
Which
that
is
even that could be a good thing.
because that's the other thing, right? Everything bad happening is there's also a silver lining, right? In
Right.
every
Yeah.
crisis is also opportunities. So in this way, is that kind of cycle, is breaking the cycle of the, one could say that perhaps people are getting comfortable with the current system, but now something is breaking that, right? And maybe the word comfort is not the right word, but just saying that people are used to the old system, and now this thing is breaking everything apart. This is the disruptive force, but that creates some opportunities, right? And this goes to what we were talking about too, that I think as an individual, you want to, for your long-term goals, to be thinking about what can you do as a person. So don't
Yeah.
focus on the
Your
job
own
because
thing.
job is just a job. You're hired by somebody else to perform some task, right? It's not yours, right? Job is important for you to learn stuff. I'm not against job, right? I'm just saying, hey, You do what you got to do, but ultimately you got to start thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I create? What can I,
Yeah,
you know?
I definitely feel it like myself these days because essentially it's incomparable. It's just working for a job somewhere seems boring to me
Yeah, because
compared
you're
to
just,
making your own thing
yeah,
that you are defining, that you are developing yourself, that you are steering yourself, that you are the decision maker in it. It's infinitely better because I mean it's just
it's not about the money per se, you know? Of course, if
it's
you,
about the process itself. Yeah, like in that way it's incomparable. But where it does get tricky for most, I guess, is the money, right? Like how do
right,
you,
how can
because a
you,
lot of like most of this stuff, it takes years to establish, to figure out, to, but this is where it's like that's the only way. That's how everybody's done it. You start it as a side hustle, you develop it throughout time. This is what a lot of successful people have done, right? They
yeah.
start it and they just keep putting energy into it consistently, and then
Because
eventually it grows into something.
so this is the silver lining, because right now with the advance of LLM and AI, it's forcing people to see the reality that, oh, the world can be so chaotic that new definition has to be made, new kind of way of living has to be made. And this is what's happening right now, right? The former structures of working for a company for 50 years and then retire is done, is gone.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
not, it
more.
doesn't
That's
exist
not
anymore.
possible anymore. So this is the paradigm shift is happening. So you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt to this, and you have to find new ways to fit in, because you can't just rely on companies to pay for your pensions and this and that, right? I mean, even if they do, you got to think about your contingency plans. What if it doesn't work out now, right? Because everybody's job is at risk of being uh, of being gone, right? You can't be replaced at any time. So this is actually kind of a good wake up call for people to
Right.
kind of, for their own benefit, for their own livelihood, you got to do something for yourself, right? It's like it's the best way to live. Even if you don't make as much money as before or what have you, it's still psychologically it's kind of how you want to live your life. It's just like, okay, I'm creating
Right.
my own thing. That's the best thing you can do, even if you don't make the, you know, the big bucks and whatever. I mean, because you got to contextualize what that big bucks means for you. You know, even if you do achieve it, it's like, what does it mean? Even if you have all that money, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to use it for? So that's the important
Yeah,
thing.
I kind of stumble upon the same thoughts because I was thinking about the fact that I mean there's just so much stuff that you can do these days. It just as a just for leisure even, right? You can go traveling, you can go downtown to this city, you can go to that show and this show. But to myself, I was thinking and I was like, a lot of these things that I don't really want to do. So if you give me time and money, I just wouldn't choose to do those things.
Yeah.
And
So
maybe there's time for, time for this and that, but I don't feel any urge to engage in all things. Where I do find meaning and satisfaction and fulfillment in creative process. But that process literally looks like sitting your ass in front of a computer for 10 hours a day.
yeah,
And
trying to
that
figure
there's
it
no
out.
way around it. Like there's no way around it. That's what it looks like. But to me, it's like I do like it because as a result, I do create my own stuff. I engage my mind. I think about stuff. I define things. I be creative. I make new stuff that didn't exist before in a configuration that I see cool. Of course, there are different ways to be creative. You can be creative out in the public. You can be a sculptor and working with actual physical world, but that's where it's just your choice, right? It's up to
Or
you to
you can
figure
be
out what you
creative
like.
as an entrepreneur, right? In business, you can be creative. You can finding out new ways to make money, or seeing what's out there. But hey, can I just create this product because hey, this is a new way of introducing a product that
Right.
people might need. So
But it's that engagement that has to be the
yeah,
the,
so
the thing, right?
you're not just okay, I'm gonna wake up, eat breakfast, go to my job, and then finish that, go home, and then like that whole
Yeah.
cycle is just like, I mean, yes, in the short term you feel comfort because like, oh, I have this is known quantity. It's a known quantity. I know what to do each day. It might feel great for a
Yeah.
bit, but then eventually that's gonna get old. And then you also
I realized for me, like I realized that just going through the motions and the just the routineness of it, I really dislike because comparing to my actual experience to this, it's day and night. There is just I'm unmotivated. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be doing it because it's not engaging enough for me. It doesn't engage my creative capacity enough because either the subject or the circumstances are not right for it because they're not that. something I'm interested in. Because not all situations you can be equally creative in. I don't think that's the case. Some things will be of more interest and more up to your abilities and skills than
So
others.
it just kind of means to me that you have to kind of live on the edge for the optimal living experience. Human
Yeah,
experience is to live on the
I
edge a
think
little
so.
bit, like a little bit of unknown, right? Or at least manageable level of unknown, right? Where you are seeing it almost like, oh, you can flip the script. Like, hey, this is an adventure. I'll see what happens,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So again, coming back to AI, I guess, like I said, just enjoy the show. Almost like you kind of have to face it, be like, hey, maybe this can be good if we're just be careful of how we approach things, right? Even though we can't stop it from happening, hey, we can use these tools and start thinking about, oh,
yeah. For a consumer, the only thing you can do, and I believe what you should do, is still just explore it, understand what its capabilities are, and keep experimenting because there's no ceiling at this point. The sky is the limit. It will take you years to master this tool, to understand how you can use it, what its ceiling is. So that's where I do think it's an opportunity, and one should just experiment with it. But I don't know. I'm actually curious how much of a who uses it and who doesn't use it because, for example, I know my parents don't use it. I try to teach them multiple times and they just, you become a certain age where you're not you're not willing to learn new stuff
right.
because you're just like, it's too much work.
And even the prompt, it's like this is an art form, right? How
It
to ask the
is.
right question. Take a special skill
See,
to.
the AI is fresh enough where I remember how I did feel the friction in the beginning because there was a big period of time where all the advanced LLMs were already out there, but I wasn't really using them. Partially, actually, was because I was already busy at work, so there not really no time to dive into the thing and fully comprehend how you can use it because there's still some learning curve there. But now that I've had actual time and I made the decision to like dive in and mess around with it and see what I can do with it, that allowed me to learn how to use them and what I can do with them. So that's another interesting aspect. So maybe this increased joblessness will actually give people time to get
Yeah,
familiar with the very tool that put them out of work.
it's like yeah, if you can't beat them, join them, right? It's like, well,
Pretty
use the
much.
weapon that of the enemy, basically, because
Pretty
it's
much.
yeah, because again, it will be unfortunate for anybody who loses their job, but it's just the way things are right now, right? And you just have to adapt. There's no you can't really cry about it or worry about it. It's happening, and you just have to be. For those who lost a job, you have to find new ways, and for those who still have a job, I mean, yes, hold on to it for dear life, but still, you got to start thinking about, okay, what other source of income can I do on the side or other
Yeah,
things I can
because the
explore
idea is
because
that nobody's safe essentially.
nobody's safe, like if you could be a CEO or I mean, at some level, high level, even you can be cut down because like you're no longer needed because it costs too much. Because I know this, I heard of some high levels are getting axed because the upper management think that we're paying you too much because every year we have to increase your salary. So I don't think we need you anymore. So
Yeah, which is also a crazy concept that this at C-suite this is the norm, and then people get like thousands of dollars worth of raises and stuff. It's just crazy.
So I mean, for the employee, of course, they will want a raise for the hard work that they do. But in terms of overall, this is the danger bell, right? Because according to the corporate, they're like, well, you're just a number, and this number is getting too much expenditures, and we're
Yeah,
just gonna
yeah,
slash it off. So as an employee, you always have to be on your toes because, like, yeah, you could be next because they keep saying it's not you, it's not gonna be you, it's not gonna be you, it's only all the other people, but eventually it will be you, right?
yeah. It's funny actually. I saw this firsthand, and that's literally what happens if economy it contracts. Then companies do fire like all kinds of directors and people who are not
Right.
really necessary to make like have the actual business happen.
Yeah.
So when I was a project manager running projects that actually bring the cash flow in a company, they cut in the director of
Right.
project management who was essentially
Not di-
useless.
not directly.
Like, yeah, his absence does not change the fact that I still have to do my job and just do all the same operations that actually make the projects go forward and the clients hand over the money. The director was there, funny enough, to just flaunt around the weight and just like for the appearances, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, not to say that all directors are useless like that, but that's where it's like trimming the fat, where it's just when facts come to facts, your presence does not generate that much revenue, which means then what's the point of paying you? We don't have the money, then you go. So it's funny that the further you climb in the hierarchy, professional hierarchy, actually, more frequently you change jobs, essentially.
Yeah. I heard from Google, actually, a lot of them actually want to be fired because they just want it on the resume that I work on, at Google, and they actually have a huge exit package as well. So like a lot of people they're like, okay, I just work here for a bit, so I have the basically gilded resume, and then you can fire me. I want to get fired.
Why don't they want to stay? Because isn't the job worth it itself?
The job is, I mean, yeah, the pay is nice, but then there's no advancement anymore for some. Because it's like there's a huge amount of competition.
But what's the alternative? If you're working at Google, what else do you want?
I don't know. For some people, they're like, they can use that to kind of start their own thing or something. But obviously, I have that on the resume. It's like everybody wants ex-Google, right? So for some of them, there's that. But again, that's Google. It's like really an exception, But for sure, yeah, a lot of these changes are happening right now in the economy. So just hold on to their life. For everybody, right? Whether you're on your own or you're self-employed or, you're working at a job, just, basically massive changes are coming still. And in this kind of uncertain world, basically right now, I mean, think about what's happening right now in this US, even here in Canada, a lot of things are happening, new directions. And then in the world in general as well, it's less peaceful. There's a lot more conflict going on right now. Because you can see this as you can kind of gauge the temperature by what's happening in the world, right? Like just kind of this general degradation of this, kind of like the economy is down, and therefore these countries are having more frictions, and that can turn into conflicts. That can be, so it's also because we're more globalized on the world. So any one thing changes, impacts everything else. So, which is why everybody need to start thinking about AI, need to start kind of learn more about it, be more informed about it, and therefore you can have a better opinion.
It's part of the new norm, essentially. It's here to stay.
Because it will affect you. It will affect you one way or another.
Yeah.
So you can't just hide
if you're not using it, it's like not using planes or automobiles
or computers, right? Or not using computer at all, right?
It's the same level of magnitude.
You're going to be left behind. This is the quandary of human life. Unless you want to go off the grid, right? If you want to go off the grid, that's one way to live for sure. But you're going to be facing certain other challenges as well.
Yeah, you still have to figure out how to do that sustainably. You still have to have a massive amount of resources to do that. I mean, that's still like, that's still the highest luxury probably you can afford in the world.
Yeah, to go off the grid, it's like, wow. That's
to go live in a forest somewhere, build yourself a nice little cabin. I totally do that.
Some people are living that. Exactly.
Nature? What else do you want?
So basically there are levels of off the grid, right? There are different levels of detachment from society, and therefore there are different level of procurements in terms of the resources. Because the thing is, people in the cities, we're so highly dependent on society, right? Each person is so highly dependent, meaning that, perhaps you can see that as a weakness, because anything happened to the infrastructure, to the supply chain, then we're kind of doomed, right? So for those who are prepared, who are off the grid, well, you're more or less safe in that sense. But
that's where it's weird because it can't be done in mass.
Yeah, exactly. Most people can't be doing that. They're just not sustainable.
Living in our little island. Hey, this is my part of the forest, and then 50 kilometers away.
Imagine how much chicken we go through each day as the world. So if you don't have industrialized farmings, like how the hell are you going to feed everybody? There's no way. So human population would just drastically decrease if we're going to go.
That's where the whole thing would need to be reorganized in such a way that we need to start from scratch, essentially. If we were designing the ideal society like Jean Fresco was trying to do, I guess, those ideal cities with perfect, which is self-sustaining essentially. So ideally, there would need to be your environment within your community is feeding you as well. So everything is in there, everything is local, and it's possible to organize it this way. But it would have to be done intelligently. Like you would have to create such a environment in a city from scratch right now, because modern cities are not built that way. They're all just this sporadic, chaotic growth of just like a cancer of concrete and electronics, and it's weird. It's not natural. It's not good for us. I was just doing a little research for the other day to prove someone else a point that we haven't evolved to live in cities in this density with this environment. And there's actual research that's saying that that's true, because first of all, the density of population is not good for you, because most of our lives historically we lived in small tribes, and we talked about the Dunbar number before. So which means you're comfortable with knowing 150 people. And if you're now living in a multi-million megapolis, what it does, you don't know about it yet. I mean, you don't know about it consciously, but essentially it creates a stress for you, because your nervous system, your brain has to categorize like, okay, this is much more than 150 people. So most of these people are strangers. So you live among strangers all the time, which it's very disturbing to your subconscious, because you're not in your tribe.
And also people are more likely to screw other people over because you're subconsciously thinking, hey, I don't know this guy. I can just scam this guy and I can get away with it.
And that's a whole city like that. Imagine, because everybody's nervous system and psychology is the same. So it's the fact that everybody is less trustworthy to each other. As a result of this social overwhelm, people are less social in general, because you're under threat. Your nervous system is stressed because of that.
Constantly strangers, and you have to, because
who are these people? What are they up to? You don't know them.
It takes time for people to know each other, right? You got to talk to the person to understand what they're from or how they're, what their situation is, and if there's any commonalities. Yeah, so basically, there's almost a vetting process for you to find friends or find people who you can associate with. So, yeah, if all you're doing every time you see strangers, like that's the whole process you got to start if you want to know that person. So it's like a lot of
all
energy.
You have to do is like do that and then go live in a village somewhere for 10 years. Yeah. The way of life is so different, because in a village, you'll know everybody eventually.
Everyone knows each other,
and you'll have a community where people actually relate to each other, care for each other, greet each other, etc. And that's just the social aspect of it. The rest of it is the way the buildings are built, the fact that there's so much noise. There's noise pollution. There is light pollution at night. We're using all these devices and the computer screens till the very late of night. It disrupts the circadian rhythms. So all of this in combination. And the fact that the small apartments, they're just terrible for you psychologically. The fact that there can be all kinds of mold and old furniture that creates terrible conditions for the air in your apartment. It can have 5 times more pollution essentially in your apartment due to that than outside. And if you live in that and if you breathe that 12 hours or 20 hours a day, it's bad for you. All of this, the air quality specifically, I read, it lowers your cognitive ability. Imagine that. So I researched all that because some guy was telling me, I like living in coziness of my flat in the city. Thank you very much, you like tree hugger. I'm like, really? You prefer living here in that little apartment in the middle of a polluted city than in nature? So weird. I would like to live in nature.
Yeah, this is kind of why I chose Vancouver. Sometime when you go out there into the nature, oh my God, the access to nature is definitely important. But see, that's the thing, right? Everything goes into each other because we're forced into cities because of economy, because of this idea that we need to create money. We need to create this exchange of value of thing, and then just kind of things get out of control, essentially, right? And now people figure out, oh, we must industrialize. We must make people go into cities so they can service other people and industries and things, and to build more and more and more. And this is what's happening right now, right? And it's almost like the system will not work if you don't urbanize. But the problem is, obviously, like you point out, we're suffering all of these problems because of that. Right, that's a consequence. So that we can have fancy cars, we can have fancy whatever you can buy. I mean, that's basically the whole thing. And now people are being spoon-fed that you need to be consuming right? This and that, and all this, buy that, and it's just a
Yeah.
cycle of like,
I was trying to shop yesterday just online for the Black Friday discounts.
yeah,
And there were some good discounts, but I was so hard pressed. Like, what? I don't need any of this stuff. The only thing I did get is a new vacuum cleaner because I legitimately needed one, and I invested in a good quality one because yeah, quality of air and pollution in your own
technology
flat is
is
important.
helpful. That's to be sure.
Well, that's where it's funny because like that technology is needed to combat the other technology that lowers the quality of life. You know, it's
That's
this
what's
weird
happening. Yeah,
circle of
yeah.
yeah,
But again, that's the kind of world we're living in, right? It's a crazy time to be alive, right?
yeah.
It's like,
Like now we have air filters and we need air filtration because air is polluted, but air is polluted because of other technology. You
yeah.
know, is this
Imagine
weird
imagine our
cycle?
ancestor, their whole life, they don't see this much change. Their whole life, they'll be like living the same way as they were a kid, you know? But dude,
Wow,
we are
what
experiencing all
a
of that changes in our
right.
lifetime, and we're
Imagine the stability of that,
just
of just like
the
world being
same.
the same as you know it, as you've
Yeah,
never known
nothing
it.
changes, right?
That's
Or at least
Would that be boring? I don't know. It because you grew up with it. Like it
you
would be
get used
completely
to it. It'll
normal
be
with
like,
you, right? Yeah.
this is how things are, right? But obviously it's much more brutal back in the day with disease
Yeah.
and war and things. So, but people do get used to a lot of things. I'm just saying the life experience of modern day humans are so incomprehensible to ancient
Yeah.
people. They're like, what the hell? Every 10 years is a new thing. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you
Or
adjust to that,
faster than
right?
that too.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, we're faster than that, right? Every month something's happening. It's happening so fast. And I think
Yeah.
one of the key thing is what we had to adapt. I mean, just as our body are not adapt at the kind of caloric intake that we do in modern
Right.
day, which means you must find ways to exercise of getting all that exercise in. But that's a solution that you find to the problem that you're dealing with. So like we're saying, this AI thing and modern advancement are not going to stop, and therefore you must adopt to it. So
Hmm.
meaning that you are forced to just think on your feet, right? You can't stagnate. You can't just sit around being, things will be okay or things will be the same. No, it will not be, right? So it's kind of a signal to get off your ass, essentially, or mentally, you got to be just constantly thinking about all these things and again, it's not about trying to don't get anxious about it, right? You don't want to have any of these sort of like you don't want to have a nervous breakdown just because things are happening too fast. So it's definitely about adopting this new way of life. It's almost like you are in a river, you're at a rapid, right? And you just have to adapt the flow of water because it's just going that fast. And so it's more about endurance, I suppose. So with you gotta have a mental state kind of solid enough to, even as things are happening fast, you'll be like, okay, I can still maintain my core principles and things I want out of life, what I want to achieve, and then I can adapt to new technologies. I can, you know, because I think a lot of people are, especially older people, are kind of too stubborn and refusing to adopt, and there will be consequences for not keeping up, right? So that's why, yeah, sure, young people are just adapt much faster, but still, even for people middle age and up, like, hey, you gotta follow up what's going on, right? That's part of whether you like it or not, is part of the living process. And just as being more informed, it just make you better in general. That's what I think. Yeah. So
What do you think about the notion about integrating with AI for what
man,
Sam Harris mentioned? Because that's
man, shit.
definitely going to be an option eventually.
Some people are what do you call it? What are they called? Technical. Well, wait, what's the the people who are the singularity, right? The people who embrace singularity, and
Hmm.
like all that people are embracing that kind of transhuman, right? Transhumanism,
Transhumanism?
where they're basically it's like the animes and cyborgs and the sci-fi stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
some people are they're embracing all that, like, hey, replace the limbs, replace this and that, and our argument, and I mean, I can understand the sort of what they are trying to kind of their whole idea about it, but to think that you're gonna replace your
Not replace, but augment again, right? So it would be in integration, kind of like that Mentat in the Dune, right? Remember the guy who kind of has AI in his head somehow? So you're able to query essentially from within your brain. So you engage it that way. But the question, yeah, again, is how would that work? Can it be one way? Is it going to completely change who you are? Is it going to create a new type of being?
Well,
So many.
in the example of Dune, they are actually just people, but they somehow are able to, what do you call that?
Mutations?
Like meditate it into human computers. Like they are able to use their mind and form like a computer in itself. So it's all biological. So they weren't integrating any sort of technology into it. They just kind of willed their way into being able to calculate all those complex calculations and stuff. But that's just a minor point. All I'm saying is, yeah, okay, so yeah, if you have the ability to integrate, I mean, there's
imagine it was accessible right now, essentially ChatGPT, but in your brain.
Right.
So you have a thought, an impulse, like how many, and then you have an answer right away. So essentially, it's almost like if it's completely integrated, it would be like instant knowing or something,
right.
So the moment you want to know something, you do
know it.
Something like that, which is crazy. What does that even? Because right now, everything is like you have a question for everything, right?
Yeah.
Like what I'm gonna eat, how am I gonna do this? What job do I need to look for?
Okay, so but that goes into the fundamental question of what is a thought and what is an understanding. Because imagine if you try to understand, let's say, okay, if I want to try to do something, I don't know how to. Let's just say if I'm going to change the oil for my car, right? I don't know how to do it. That series of actions and understanding I don't have. So let's just say I integrated with ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT how to do it. Imagine if you understand it instantly, but that's a knowledge in which you have no heuristic for. You never gone through the thing.
That's what they have in the Matrix. Remember the first Matrix? They're like,
I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, it's that. So but from that standpoint, it's literally some kind of it's a neural configuration, right? Because knowledge is just that. It's
so
neural
somehow
connections.
You changing the configurations on the fly so that you can understand exactly.
This is where it's fun to think about how that technology would work. Maybe it would be, and you know how the brain is consistent of different modules and different little brains?
Yeah.
It would be like an additional modules that would simulate, it would be like a synthetic little brain, which would be able to put these virtual neurons into any needed configurations because it's all just virtual. You can manipulate it. It could be something like that. It's
right. But there's also a time issue, right? Because we as humans learn things by doing it, which costs time, right? Is you go through time.
But not needed anymore. It's going to be like Matrix. You upload, you unload it, you take the configuration, you know it.
But like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, right? Because it's like, that would be something so different.
These skills might be like temporary. Like if you need to fly a helicopter, you just load up the helicopter flying program and you have it. So literally Matrix style.
But that's almost like, well, then do you actually understand what you're doing? Or is it just like I'm automatically doing this without me actually understanding what I'm doing?
No, you're still in control, right? So that what would be the difference? It's not like your body would lose control of your body. It's still you're consciously doing it. Like, because think about any skill. It kind of works like that. When you're driving a car, you don't think about how you're driving a car. You're just doing it, right?
So imagine if you flying a fighter plane. You know, in the cockpit, there's so many gauges and so many things.
Yeah, but once you master it, it's all automatic.
Okay, I download the thing, and right away I know which one which.
Exactly. Yes, you know what to do. That's the dream. That's what every child dreamed since they've seen The Matrix. They're like, I don't want to go to school. I just want to load the program in.
But that's also, that form...
That would be dope.
It would be dope, but then there is the philosophical question of what's worth learning, right? It's almost like if you can learn everything, if you can learn every single thing that's out there,
then everything becomes just a matter of what you want to experience.
Then right? That society will be very different because you don't have to compete in terms of because right now we're in this kind of scarcity kind of society because everything is based on that kind of
you have to develop valuable skills
to compete,
that kind of match your strengths. Right.
So imagine if you can learn everything.
It would be a different society for sure.
But then who's creating the new inventions? If everybody are very skilled to do it themselves,
it will just maximize. It would promote people following their natural interests, because some people will want to build stuff, some people want to invent stuff, some people will want to fly airplanes and not do anything else because they love playing airplanes. So I think it would be good for that. If anything, along with that technology, there would be some kind of analysis for suitability or something that will also inform you how to use it best or something.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a version of Star Trek, right? Where in that universe is more because everything changed because of the replicators. They're able to print food and anything you want, right? 3D print everything and the real thing, like the real thing, whether it's food, it's items, anything. So I guess this is the idea that, well, if you can learn anything, then that can also create the platform to change how people view and do things, right?
Eventually, I think if we continue this line of thinking, because, yeah, for example, I was thinking, you think about it only in a limited way, because you can't
comprehend it.
You can't comprehend how far this thing could go. But eventually, it could go. I mean, it totally is moving all the way towards full magic, full control of. There's nothing unchangeable about you. If you want to fly a plane, you can. Because right now you can't, because, the same way, not everybody can be an astronaut. There's so much criteria there. There's the training, the intellect, the studying, the sciences that you need to know, the physiological conditions, the nervous system, the psychological parameters. It's a very narrow window for the person to be able to satisfy all those criteria. But eventually, if we invent technology that makes anybody anything they want to be, that would be the utopia, I think.
Well, I do see some caveat to that, though. Imagine if you can alter how you look.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody wants to be handsome and beautiful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then what does that mean? Like, what's the new society be like? Is everybody just going to change themselves into a version that's...
Yes, but what that also means still is that things will not stop changing because of that, because right now beauty is also because it's somewhat rare. Not everybody is beautiful. Actually, it would be an interesting statistics to see what portion of the population is considered beautiful by, majority or something. Because they're definitely beautiful people who are they're like, you see them and they're unmistakable, right? In all kinds of cultures, from all people, you see a person, and when they're beautiful, you're like, yeah, that's a beautiful human. So if everybody was able to do that, I think. There's beauty is about scarcity as well.
It will be changed, right?
So beauty standards would have to adjust, because people would be looking for ways to, like, how can I look different? People will be essentially creating new beauty standards, which is
basically the ugly is the new beauty, right? The more ugly you can make yourself, the more beautiful you are.
It will be kind of like the Fulgrim's Legion in Warhammer 40K. When they, because they're all for Slanesh, and they are all about modifications and the most extreme form of sensations, essentially. Because if you keep exploring a thing, everything becomes boring and stale. Right. So you have to keep pushing
more and more
the extremes more and more until you pierce your eyelids, and that's the cool thing that everybody does because that's new. Yeah. So something like that would happen. I think the society would always keep changing in that regard.
Well, I guess
the fact that everybody would be able to make that change, and so literally imagination would be the only limit. That is, I think, where we're going.
Yeah, just to start thinking about, some African tribes had that lip ring thing they put onto their lips. So that's their beauty standard, right? It's like, for outsiders, like, what the hell is that? But yeah, so these things are malleable. They can change. How a society value, I don't know, beauty and other things, and what's useful, what's valuable, then it can change depending on the situation, which is kind of fun to think about sometimes with these kind of science fiction ideas. Like, imagine, some people imagine a whole different world and how they view things, and it's very, very interesting when some people are very creative. They can create these ideas like, oh yeah, what if a society looked that thing this way,
or they had those norms. Definitely fun to think about. Actually, that's an interesting idea. I'm going to take that to explore that.
What if a society is like a certain way, right?
I like thinking about that because it's definitely, essentially, it impacts everything, right?
Yeah, it informs everything that you take for granted or what you.
So the whole lore would be different because you can see, even just based on our history, we talk a lot about it in our conversations. It unfolds in a certain way. There's a certain string of things that evolve towards a certain thing. There, and different countries, different people grow into different entities with their own different distinct histories and their own different flavors of how they do the things and why they do those things. And still, a lot of similarities between all of them, but definitely different flavors and different manifestations of culture and way of life and civilizations and norms and for all intents and purposes, just our planet alone just provide you with infinite amount of things to just engage with and study and enjoy. So
Yeah,
even our planet is, for the human mind, is an infinite world.
Yeah, I remember seeing they were interviewing all these astronauts, and there seemed to be an effect, like I don't remember what's the exact term for it, it's maybe the blue dot theory or something, where, every astronaut, once they go out to space and they see Earth with that view,
Yeah.
their whole, like their worldview basically changed, right? Like they start seeing that we're so small, everything that ever happened in history or whatever is happening down there, like in this little dot of blue marble, as Carl Sagan used to say. But that changes how they think about things. Like, oh, all my problems are nothing. I am nothing. Humans in the scale of the universe, it's like you're nothing, you know. So a lot of times they actually become depressed. All these astronauts, like, they become depressed because they start seeing, oh, but some people, they come out of it by saying, oh, well, you create your own, it's all meaningless anyway. I mean, imagine the ultimate, you were just this creature on this little planet out in the universe wandering. So it's like, well, yeah, well, the universe doesn't care. I mean, there's nothing that other than what you see here. So it's like, you just decide your own adventure then. This is what's the world is.
Paradigm shifting effect. It's called an overview effect. It's a profound cognitive shift upon seeing Earth from space, fostering awe and interconnectedness and planetary unity without borders. I mean, that's why everybody wants to experience something like that, because it's one thing hearing about it, but imagine seeing it, like, oh my God, this is real.
Yeah.
All of us are on this one little planet right now.
And I think they say it's like a permanent neural change. The instant you see it, your whole kind of, I don't know, like even physically maybe, like it changes how you view things. Like it's just a complete different kind of paradigm shift for a person to just see that. You can't unsee it, basically, right? So once you do experience something
because
like
it becomes real. It becomes really real. This is why I guess we still have flat earthers, because they haven't the only proof for them would be actually seeing it like that.
Yeah, but exactly. I think one of the other thing is just realizing that, hey, everything is contextual, right? It's like depending on how you're thinking about certain things. So it's almost like you have the control over how you think about everything in the world. And if you want to be pessimistic, then you will be a pessimist, right? So if so like you are what you are, and therefore, if you want to have a good life, you gotta make yourself be an optimist, right? Things can happen, bad things can happen, sure, but the good things can happen as well.
Yes, that's one of the big things one of the bigger insights in just spiritual pursuit for me has been that essentially anything can be true. And as we've already established in a lot of our previous conversations, there are very few things that you can prove and you can actually be sure of, which means then you can evaluate any knowledge or any belief from the standpoint of how useful it is to you. What do you want? What do you want it to, whatever you want to believe in that makes you feel better and live a more productive life, that becomes the criteria. Just you choosing constructive beliefs that just help you live better. That's it.
Just don't be, because look, I remember back in the day I used to work at a pizza place, not where we worked before, but a different place where I was just working as a cook. And then there's always, I remember this guy very distinctively. He is just that kind of always complaining type of person. And you see him, he's always pissed off. He's always like, this is BS, this is blah, 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 blah. Like, I can see that person. I'm like, okay, I understand that, yeah, this currently you're not having a good time because you work at the pizza place. You're not at a place where you want to be and all that. And we all go through that, right? Because we all have to start somewhere. But I can see from that mentality, like the guy is just completely complaining. He's having a miserable time, you know? Like you could
And it's
choose,
just, it's just your interpretation and perspective and an angle. At any
yeah,
point, you can
you can
just
change your
have
mentality.
the opposite disposition, and your whole reality will be transformed. Because you can see it from the like, oh my God, I get to feed people. Oh my God, I get to become the master of my cooking skills and become the best possible chef. You know, it's so
Right.
many different
Or
ways to look at anything.
or just be like, hey, this is just a stepping stone. You know, I'm just working my way through. Right, right now is what I got to do. But or you're just thinking about
But
happy
from
things.
the standpoint of like choosing better beliefs, and with the keep in mind that flow video that I sent you, it's the idea that you make everything into a game.
Right.
So you choose the best possible view on it. You make it like, I am mastering my skills. I'm training in this. I'm going to make this my goal. I'm going to see if I can impress my boss. I'm going to see if I can impress this customer and make them happy and make them laugh.
You know what?
It's all about a disposition.
You know what it reminded me? It was back in the day when we worked together at Pizza Hut. Bro, there was one day that was so busy. I remember you were at front. I'm at the back cooking.
Yeah.
It was so fast. I had to do it so fast. And after the day ended, I feel a sense of accomplishment because I was like literally like lightning speed. I'm like
You
wow,
had to
I'm
do a lot of
impressed.
stuff to
I
make
was
it.
impressed about myself. Wow, I can actually do it that fast. It's like, but that's basically if you make it into a game, then yeah, that's an achievement, right? You're feeling like, oh, I'm operating. I'm in the flow state. I'm doing this.
Oh man, I had many such days at that workplace. Some of the days I had no cook. And I had no cashier, no nothing. I would have to serve, take orders, take payment,
and make the thing.
Fetch the ingredients and get the dough, everything. Because there's nobody. I have no idea how it was even possible. It was organized and managed that way, and how I was able to do it. But I mean, I was running. I was literally running the whole day, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I was doing all of that for so long over there, but definitely, I mean, this is where, every experience is valuable because, I mean, to work in that environment, and especially with the type of customers that go to a place like that,
man,
it's a whole life school, okay? Of an experience. You can't really learn stuff like that.
Like people that you see, oh my God, those are all kind of walk of life.
You have to deal with that. You have to learn to deal with that. Like by the end of it, I was essentially losing all my patience because I was like, there was just nonsense, right? It's just unsustainable.
All kinds of BS.
And it was literally stressing me out to the point where one time a customer, it was a group table, I think, it pissed me off so much because they were just being unreasonable for some small thing, as customers always be, that I threw a tray on their table and just like, go fuck yourself, and just went home, dude, just left the whole work.
It's like, do it yourself.
I'm done. Goodbye. Just didn't even say nothing to nobody. I was so done with it.
Sometimes you do be like that, man. Sometimes you do be like that. You're just done. That's
when you know that, you need to, you're done with that work. You learned all the things that you need to learn. You need to move on.
Yeah, sometimes, that's what kind of like, what's the saying? It's like, no matter what you do, like you're gonna learn from your experience, right? Like how far you will go. Right? Because you can be like, because obviously the optimal way is to do something and as quickly as possible learn the stuff that you need to learn from that experience. But sometimes people can be just stuck in a place for so long that they are not questioning any of it until it actually breaks them, right? Until they get to a point where, this is, because you can make all kinds of excuses, rationalization about why you're staying at a certain experience and this and that. Like explaining to yourself why you're stuck with this job and why you're continuing to stay here even though you got abused and this and that. But I think that ultimately is kind of it depends on the agility of your mental process, right? The faster you can learn from a thing and kind of extract lessons from experience, the better you will be.
Yeah, and that's an interesting topic in its own, like what determines how fast we learn and when you have enough essentially of a thing. That would be an interesting topic to explore for a separate video, because we're at a 3-hour mark already.
My
and
God.
I just started for the little AI video that
just
is like
video,
12 minutes
man.
long or something.
Just a video.
So it still provides so much food for thought, right? So many topics for discussion, just how this little technology can impact our way of life and what it makes us think about.
But I think the
It's
conclusion, I
infinite.
think for me is just like, hey, just enjoy the ride, right? You gotta be an optimist, right? It's like, okay, even if there's all these things, I mean, hell, to me, it's like, even if it end up being very terrible and like, okay, well, that's what you got, right? It's like, this is what, so like,
You not really
I will still
have
be like,
much of a sway.
yeah, enjoy the process of getting slaughtered by AI eventually, right? I mean,
That's the ultimate
that's the
transcendental
ultimate,
perspective.
yeah. Because if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. It's like hell. We brought it into fruition, right? So
Yeah.
if you open Pandora's box, but you know that the myth, right? Pandora's box, once it's open, there's also one thing left. All the evil got released into the world, but there's also one thing left. That's hope. That was the myth. So
There's always hope.
but
Yeah.
there's always a silver lining, even if you screw up majorly.
Yeah. Keep hope alive, and yeah, because that's the best we can do.
That's all you have as human.
Yeah.
It's in all the stories that we tell. It's in all the, this is why, for example, Lord of the Rings are so beloved by people. Because, I mean, as far as without even talking about the monumental book itself, just the movie itself, just if you just see the movies, the way it's so endearing to people is because it's offer hope. That's the whole idea. You can never give up, right? You should never give up. There's always hope, and that's just a positive message gives all the people, that provides all the people, and that's what the people ultimately wanted. It's just like, no matter how bad things are, you need to be hopeful. So that's how the human
That's right.
works.
So stay hopeful and stay crispy.